What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Vanguard live show. This is our monthly weekend live stream where we answer questions from our community. So we're super excited to do that. One of our favorite streams of the month. It's always a really good time, and obviously anything goes. So feel free to ask us whatever's on your mind, guys. We'll try to get to all the questions, obviously giving priority to our patrons who submitted their questions last night. If you're a patron listening and you haven't submitted your question yet, feel free to do so while there's still time. We'll probably be live for at least an hour and a half or so. So, get in whatever you got. And obviously, we'll be answering any and all super chats as well as, some regular questions potentially as well, depending on how much time we have. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Like I said, always a really fun live stream.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get everybody trickling in here. As Gavin said, one of our favorite live streams to do every month. Pretty chill for us. All we have to do is answer questions. Don't have to do much planning. I look forward to learning what David's favorite Lynch films are again. LOL, that's hilarious.
That does seem to come up like every month. My favorite right now is Lost Highway, but actually I also like all these other ones. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Lynch,
no, you're good.
Oh, I was going to say, speaking of Lynch, this guy came up to me yesterday and he was talking to me about David Lynch at the bar, and he was like a little hammered. So I'm like, oh yeah, this is an interesting thing that I'll talk to you about for a little bit. And then he was telling me about David Lynch's new movie, and I was like, no, dude, I think that got shelved. I don't think that he's doing that project anymore. No, dude, it is. It's going to be just like David Cronenberg. And I was like, no, dude, I don't think so. Like, I don't think there's going to be. I was like, Twin Peaks might be the last. I was like, he did What Would Jack Do for Netflix? And the guy was like, no, it was crazy. Marilyn Manson's in it. I was like, did you see that trailer for Lost Highway? And he was like, that's what it's called. I was like, that movie came out like 25 years ago. Like,
that's hilarious. You thought Lost Highway was new?
Yeah, because I guess they put a trailer cut for the re-release that was going around, and he was like, thought it was like a new David Lynch project, and I was like, oh, fam, like it's a great movie. I told him he should watch it, but I was like, it just got re-released, like it's a very 90s as fuck.
That's hilarious. I wish I could experience that movie for the first time, though. I'm so envious of people that have never checked out those movies, getting to watch them for the first time. What a dream. But yeah, thanks so much, Harrison. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in so far. Make sure to hit that like button if you are just tuning in. It really helps us beat the algorithm. So really would appreciate that. And by the way, David, no, you don't have to apologize for anything. Not at all. We really appreciate you tuning in regularly, commenting in the chat, just being a part of the community. No payment necessary, man.
100%, absolutely. Fuck that. I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, if people have extra cash, it's better to throw it towards us than the oligarchs, we think. But obviously, we just like having a fucking show. We like having people that listen, and that's what this is about anyway. So fuck, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So we really appreciate that, David. And also, I don't know if Stacy's listening right now, but we did get a super chat from Stacy before we even went live. So really appreciate that, Stacy. First super chat of the live stream. Probably won't be able to make the live stream as usual. I always enjoy watching later. Can't wait for your first documentary. Well, thank you so much, Stacy. We always appreciate seeing you in the chat and really appreciate the super chat donation too. We're really excited to get out these documentary films for you guys. We're actually going to be hitting the road again tomorrow. To start getting footage for our second documentary film. The first one should be premiering within a week, and the second one should be coming out sometime in September. So we're really excited to be bringing you that, and there's other ones on the back burner too that'll be coming down the line. But so glad that you guys are enthusiastic about it. So glad that you guys are looking forward to it. We're definitely looking forward to sharing them with you.
Yeah, 100%. Gavin and I've been looking forward to doing this for a long time. We're making our a pilgrimage this weekend out to Woody Creek, something that we've been talking about doing our entire late college years on. Like this is a long time coming for me and Gavin actually getting out here trying to make these little pieces of documentary content for you guys. So I promise we're just as stoked, if not more, than you guys, and obviously deeply appreciative of the any kind of contributions that you guys have made, because it is expensive to make this kind of content. That's why it typically is monopolized by major studios, people with a bunch of cash, even streamers and broadcasters who have a large audience and, make a good bit more money than us. They typically don't want to invest in something like these kinds of on the ground commentary kind of videos, because they are so high risk. They are so expensive to produce in comparison to us just sitting in a chair, but we think it's worth it. We think you guys are going to enjoy it. So we're going to go out there and do it anyway. So shout out to you, Stacy, and everybody else that's been bearing with us this whole time. It's really nice. And Gavin showing off his Buddha or Jimi Hendrix. I can't tell who that is.
No, I was just showing off the cat. Hi, Sally. Say hello.
I think I noticed it like on the back end side when it was like you spinning it back around, and I was like, "Is that Buddha or Jimi Hendrix?" I was like, "With the DGK, I guess."
It's both.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, super excited for that. Do we? I want to do the next super chat or go into one of the patron Q&As? What's up, Brian? Always good to see you in the chat. What happened to the anti-war left? Why have so many leftists supported billions of dollars the proxy war in Ukraine? So that's a good question. If you're asking what has happened to the anti-war left, I think that's like a 60-year problem that the left has been dealing with. Right, the anti-war left hasn't been massively pronounced in this country since the Vietnam War. However, there was pushback in the lead up to Iraq. There was certainly a groundswell. There were plenty of people that were protesting that. And I think the reality is, though, if you're looking at a war like Ukraine, it's a lot different, right? Whenever we're not actually sending, our boys over to another country, you're going to get people who aren't as like principally opposed to intervention, simping for it. Even a guy like Bernie Sanders, right? We talked to Aaron Matze about this. A guy like Bernie Sanders will fall for this shit all the time. And Bernie Sanders is about as good as we've had in the anti-left for a long time, right? Besides Barbara Lee. So those are the two kind of faces. And even Barbara Lee's not perfect on sending fucking aid money overseas, right? Like she voted against sending, like a lot of people, their hard line is, I'm not sending our guys over there. I'm not sending the people from my neighborhood over there, right? But some money that we just printed off from the treasury, like that's just whatever. Of course, that's going to vote anyway. Just might as well not ruffle any feathers and go along to get along on that. So I think that's a big part of it, Brian. I think that, we haven't ever really had much of an opposition to these kinds of things, at least in the walls of Congress. I mean, sure, you could point to individual senators, like a guy like Mike Gravel might have been outraged and up in arms about this. But again, that was like fucking 60 years ago that he was in office. So a long time problem. And it's just part of the military industrial complex. It's just a matter of the business as usual mindset in Washington.
Right. And like we talked about, when there's not actually American troops going over to fight these wars and returning home in caskets, it's harder to generate that kind of anti-war movement necessary. So if it's just like, oh, we're just sending money, we're just sending aid, it doesn't really seem like that big of a deal to your average, person. I'm sure a lot of people do understand the issue with that, chiefly the escalation with the nuclear armed superpower bringing us closer to nuclear Armageddon. That's really my big concern. But yeah, I just think that a lot of people don't quite realize that, and they think it's the right thing to do without really realizing the potentially unintended consequences of, escalating with Russia. Again, despite the fact that what they're doing is criminal and horrible. And also, as Tyler points out, there's also some on the anti-war left that go in the opposite direction, and, they get crazy and start acting like Putin's doing a good thing and that Russia's in the right. And that's equally cuckoo. That's dumb as fuck. So it's unfortunate to see people in the what should be a principled anti-war movement, dropping their principles.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great point to bring up, Gavin. The fact that a lot of leftists, right, they become leftists because they think with their hearts, right? They think with their empathy, and that's a really beautiful thing, and that's a very admirable quality that a lot of leftists have. But what happens is a lot of leftists don't spend all day every day fucking scrupulously going through all these details. They just know, oh, I believe everybody should have healthcare. I think college should be free. I don't want anybody to die in wars. Like, these are all good, rational assumptions from people, right? And so they see and hear Russia has invaded this other country. Grandmas are dying, all these kinds of things. And it's true. That's what Russia did. They straight up invaded this other country. And people are like, well, fuck, that the bad guy can't win. Let's go stop the bad guy. Let's just give money to the underdog. Let's not send any of our people there. Let's just give them some money so they can fight for themselves, because Ukraine's a small country. We have money. Let's give it to them. Now, that's how these lefties are thinking about it, right? So I try and, with regular people, not politicians or commentators, but with regular people, you try to understand where they're coming from. You say, I totally get it, right? Because obviously, if the U.S. was under siege, you would want to fight against it, and you would hope that fucking England and France would come pitch in again, right? You know what I'm saying? So that's the mindset that people are fucking coming under. It's obviously it's a lot more nuanced. Geopolitics is chess, not checkers. But I think that's why the way people are thinking about it. Well, on the other side, people are like, oh, the United States is so bad and can't be trusted with anything. Then they just decide that Russia is clearly the preferred geopolitical strategist, and that they couldn't possibly be doing anything wrong, when it's like, no, everybody does things wrong when they're a fucking world leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, Let's move on to a few of the patron questions. Again, keep them coming in the chat, guys. We'll try to get to all the questions, and obviously we'll get to all the super chats, 100% guaranteed. But let's start with a few of the patron questions. We do like to try to give priority to our patrons, our good, fine comrades and Vanguardians that ask us these questions on a monthly basis. Oops, wrong screen. Let me pull this up. If you guys don't know how we do things here, one of our patron perks is that you get priority on our monthly Q&A, meaning that you can send us any question of any length and we'll react to it and put it in a little nice graphic like you see here. I even changed up the graphic this morning because I didn't like the other one anymore. So that is a
Fall
perk of our
game.
patron. What was that?
Oh, I said you're going with a little fall going on in there. Gavin's ready. He's ready. He'll be like, oh, not until September, dude. But he's already subconsciously there. It's already September in his mind.
For real though, I am so excited for the fall weather. I love Halloween time, love the weather. I'm not excited for winter though. You know, fall is always the last gasp of decent weather until depressing ass winter rolls around. But anyway, let's get into this first question. This one's from Daniel. Thank you so much, Daniel, for the support on Patreon. Thank you so much for sending in this good question. Good afternoon, Zach and Gavin. This is Daniel from Berea, Ohio. My question is, how bad are we divided as far as class? Do you see us getting along and coming to an agreement about the way the situation is facing us in the United States right now? Or are we going to have to be so divided that we will never get along and we'll eventually have a civil war here in the United States? With our divisions, theology, ideologies, and opinions about the situation we are facing, I really want to know from you two because you guys are seeing all this played out and commentate play by play. So I want to know what you really think is going to happen in the future down the road from here on out. Well, that's a great question, Daniel. And, you know, people ask me this kind of thing a lot just in my personal life, you know, what they think. Is there going to be a civil war, dude? Like, it seems like shit's getting really crazy. And my answer to that is usually no. I don't think there's going to be like a legitimate civil war or anything like that ever, at least not in the near future, maybe barring some just completely unforeseen circumstance or just cataclysmic social event that really, you know, forces us into societal upheaval. But generally, no. I think there's going to be factions of crazy people always, like, you know, the crazies that storm the Capitol, for example, stuff like that. People that kind of want to have a civil war, you know, they kind of LARP about having a civil war. On the other side, you know, some of these like roving Antifa gangs. Not that Antifa is bad, but you know, sometimes there's these kind of LARPers that go around just looking for a fight. You know what I'm saying? These people want a civil war. Let's be honest. But I don't think it'll ever get to that point with your average public. And the reason I say that is because, unfortunately, I wish it was the opposite, but unfortunately, a lot of the, you know, just average Joes in this country, the average Joes and Janes, they've kind of tuned out from what I can tell. Like, obviously they care about the bread and butter issues. You know, obviously everyone cares about inflation and gas prices and the price of, you know, food and stuff like that. That's obviously important to people. But you know, when we're trying to get people invested in these movements and, you know, fighting for Medicare for all or whatever policy goal we're going after, you know, it's hard to get people to care. Unfortunately, I mean, they do care, but it's hard to get them involved, right? Because they have so many distractions going on. They're overworked. You know, when you get home from your fucking 9-to-5 job, you're really wanting to relax and spend some time with your family, understandably, you know, turn on some Netflix or something. You're not necessarily thinking about like, oh, how are we going to start the revolution, or how are we going to exterminate the opposite political faction? Like, that's just not really at the top of most people's minds. Again, even if they do care about politics. So, you know, as bad as the divisions are, I don't think it'll lead to anything like a civil war. Luckily, obviously, I don't think that would, you know, end well for anyone. But what do you have to think about, or what do you say about that, Zach?
Yeah, look, you know, Gavin and I sat down the other day and we watched the documentary on Netflix about Woodstock 99, right? It came out a while ago. It was on HBO for a long time. It moved over to Netflix, so everybody started talking about it again. And I sat down and I watched it. And the Woodstock 99 documentary.
That shit was crazy.
Yeah, and Gavin and I, we were watching it, and our buddy Ty had recommended it, and just was like, "You guys got to watch this. It's so Gen X, but it's got some good, you know, shit in there." We're like, "All right, but we'll check it out." And I was watching it, I kind of did have these kinds of thoughts, and I thought about how we really, and this is bullshit, and I'm not trying to sound like an asshole, but we really are kind of. Let's just imagine we're all in Woodstock '99 right now, right? We're not being taken care of by the people that planned this event. We're being fucking exploited. We're being constantly price gouged. We're being herded like animals, and we're all in this thing where it's supposed to be fun. we're all in this thing where it's supposed to be the time of our lives living in America, right? And we're constantly being given these like awesome acts, right? If you even the guys, they undersell it in the documentary, the acts that were like Metallica was headlining, Rage Against the Machine was headlining, James Brown played, like, you know what I'm saying? Like crazy shit was going on. So there's all this spectacle, right? But over time, that spectacle kind of wears out, right? And you start to really notice the fact that the bathrooms are overflowing and there's no clean drinking water and everything is falling apart, much like our fucking earth is right now, right? And what happens? The people get all pissed off, right? And you have a leader emerge, in this case, in the funky ass form of Fred Durst, Jesus Christ. And he says, let's break some shit, right? And he has this hit, and everybody goes crazy, right? And it's frat bro city, and all the worst animalistic elements come out of everybody because they're pissed off, and they tear shit down, and they set shit on fire, and there's rape, and there's drug abuse, and there's all kinds of crazy shit. And that's what I worry would honestly happen if ever there were like this kind of like big societal, like, fuck this. It's just going to descend into like craziness. So there's not going to be a clear political message. And then what's going to happen? The Stadies or the National Guard or all these motherfuckers are going to come in and they're just going to start whacking everybody with batons. They'll fucking use all kinds of militaristic force, lock up everybody, beat the shit and intimidate everybody else. And that's just why I don't think there would be a civil war. I think for the most part, it's like game, set, match as far as using violence goes. It will all descend into madness, and it'll look like Woodstock 99, and all the people will look like barbarians, and they won't look like they had a cohesive political message, even though their grievances were 100% justified. It will debase the entire message that they would have had because of the fucking response that the mob will produce. And these are all the big like problems where everybody's like, why don't we just fucking strike everywhere and just let everybody fucking do whatever they want? Because then you will get a big mob of really righteously pissed off people who will debase the entire movement because there will be no clear messaging. So that's my thoughts on.
Apparently Drew, who was at Woodstock 99, said that it was actually amazing and that no one actually got upset. So maybe that documentary was just edited sensationally, but that was a great documentary regardless. Drew says that it didn't get bad during Limp Bizkit. It wasn't bad until they handed out the candles. Yeah, it seems like it really all went to hell towards the end when they stupidly handed out everyone candles. When I was watching that, I was like, are you fucking an idiot? That's why would you do that? And of course, exactly what you think would happen happened. Yeah, I didn't really realize just how crazy that festival got until watching that documentary. But it is interesting, Drew, that you say it wasn't really that bad until like the end. Obviously, maybe there are certain like parts of the concert that were getting worse and more intense than others. So maybe you weren't in the right section, but still pretty funny stuff.
Yeah. Did you see Fatboy Slim, Drew? Just curious, because I heard that was also one of the wildest parts was in the rave room during Fatboy Slim and they had to cut it. And then the other thing was with the bathrooms, like were there clean bathrooms there? Because I watched an entire portion about a lady that got fucking sores all over her mouth from drinking contaminated water and stuff like that. So, I mean, I imagine Gavin and I were talking about it the other day. It's like if we were 1 year old when Woodstock 99 happened, so we would have fucking gone if we were like 18 or 17 or whatever. I watched them Clyde the Tower. They kicked them off and then another band came out. Oh, well, that's interesting. Good to know. Drew with the facts down here. Drew with the anti-sensationalism. I would have gone to Woodstock 99 though. No cap. I would have Rage Against the Machine apparently burned an American flag. Like that would have been based.
Hell yeah, I definitely would have gone too. Although it does suck that they didn't just put it like in a real outdoor venue. They put it on some big like fucking military installation, like all this concrete. Like, come on, if you're an outdoor festival, you want some like trees and grass and shit like that. Yeah. That being said,
part about Pitchfork is they had a bunch of trees.
Yeah, they did. I was about to say though, Pitchfork, the one annoying thing about that was all those fucking wood chips all over the ground. I kept getting like in my nose. I was like breathing in all this dust and like wood chip shit. I had super bad like allergies the next day. So that was annoying. But yeah, let's see if we have any non-super chat questions. We'll get to any real quick. Have you guys watched the documentary United States of Insanity? I have not seen that, no.
Me neither. Rage would have been the only reason to go to Woodstock 99. They would have been one of my main reasons for going, but like Ice Cube played in 99 at Woodstock. Metallica would have been insane. Like there were a bunch of fucking huge acts there. You know what I mean? Red Hot Chili Peppers are fire. Do you know how expensive it? Gavin and I wanted to see Red Hot Chili Peppers. We were like, oh yeah, dude, let's just take the train up to Chicago. We'll go see Red Hot Chili Peppers at Wrigley. Like nosebleeds were like $300. I was like, what the fuck? Like, holy shit, people paid that much to see the Chili Peppers. I like the Chili Peppers. They are like hit machines, right? You go here an hour and a half of like hit after hit after hit after hit. Would have been amazing, but not $300 amazing. Are you fucking kidding me?
That was one of my favorite parts of the Woodstock '99 doc too. How the Flea was just like naked up on stage with his guitar like in front of his dick. Essentially, I was like, what the fuck? You're just standing there butt ass naked. But yeah, I love the Red Hot Chili Peppers too. The Red Hot Chili Peppers are one of those bands like it's like in vogue to hate on them or whatever because they're like, oh, that's so basic. All they sing about is California and getting laid and stuff. I'm like, yeah. Who cares, bro? It's great. The tunes are fucking awesome.
It's like the same people that like to hate on Sublime. I'm like, dude, those first two records spank. Don't lie to yourself. The self-titled's awesome, and so is 40 Ounce to Freedom, and even like the weird like fucking CD stuff that they did that wasn't like on the record. They have some good shit. There's like fun. I don't know. People also like to hate on Sublime.
Yeah, dude. People that hate on Sublime are the worst. It's like they're the same people that think they're better than you because they don't smoke weed. Oh wow, you're fucking
Beach Boys are better than the Beatles, dude.
That's also a bad take. That's an annoying hot take. But yeah, exactly. As Tyler says, not everything has to be deep and meaningful. True. Sometimes, music's just good. And yeah, Sublime was fucking fire. At least the first 3 albums. I guess that's all they put out. Anyway, let's move on to another patron question. Let me fire it up.
Fire it up. Fire it up.
Woo!
I got this one. Yeah. Hello. Oh, can we zoom in a little bit? Let me just make it large screen for me then. All right. Hello. Just joined Patreon and I've been watching you guys for a few months on YouTube. And I must say, I like the honesty you guys have and how well informed you guys seem. Thank you. Although I might disagree with some of your takes, you guys are doing great work. Well, thank you. Sometimes I disagree with my own takes after a while. So I have some burning questions and critiques. One, on the last show, there was discussion about political slogans like abolish prisons and how it's a fine slogan to have for on the ground protest or Twitter, etc., but a politician would use different rhetoric. I would argue that no, they both need to be more politically calculated. The reason being is when trying to convince people of an idea or policy, right from the start, the slogan gives a bad impression. We are making an already uphill battle even harder. I mean, we all like the idea of don't judge a book by its cover, but the reality is we do. Even Zach proves the point when you heard about abolish prisons. You had to read and educate yourself on it first, then you agreed with the slogan. But how many people will do that? Most won't. It's just reality. Same reasons people only read headlines, but not the full article. My personal example is when I first started Black Lives Matter in response to police shootings, aka murders and disregard for Black lives. As a Mexican descent, my gut response is, what the fuck? You're not the only ones being brutalized by the police. Hispanics are too. Me, a leftist. So imagine how it plays out with other folks. Now I understand why it came out, and I agree that the idea behind it. But from a marketing standpoint, not good. Black people are brutalized disproportionately by the police, but the police are brutal across the board. IDK, if remember when there was that white yoga instructor who was shot by the police, but all I can think of how it could have been used to show how cowardly we all allow our police to act, but saying BLM doesn't work, or when Daniel Leighton Shaver was shot as well. At the end of the day, we need police reform. Yes, I understand it feels good to say BLM and abolish the police, but I want to win. Now, I'm not saying that there has to be sanction-approved slogans from some organization, but a slogan like Our Lives Matter or Their Lives Matter would be way more effective. And I think there's a lot to unpack here, Rahman, and I really appreciate you taking the time to fully articulate your position here. So even though I am going to push back and disagree with you a little bit, I really respect that you typed this out. No hard feelings at all. But we just come down a little bit differently on this coin, right? And I've actually been really entrenching myself in the argument of abolishing the prisons, and my like fundamental, unabashed view that we need to start from scratch and reconceive every single thing that we understand about justice, about criminal reform, about quote unquote policing or taking care of our citizens and making sure that they're free from harm, right? Which should be the primary goal, right? Not like how do we enforce punishment, but how do we eliminate crime, right? And so I've been thinking a lot about that. And here's why I disagree with you, because I think obviously it's true. A lot of the things that you're saying. So let's talk about what we do agree, I guess, really quickly, and then I'll pass the baton to Gavin. We do agree with 100% the fact that we are losing, and that up front, those statements that are being made, like abolish prisons or abolish the police, up front, they are shocking. So were all of the things like Medicare for all. So we're give college to everybody. These things were shocking. People laughed it off. They scoffed, but it struck a chord with people, right? So the entire 2015 to 2016 run of Bernie Sanders was people talking about how crazy and lunatic fringe he was for saying all of these things, right? For talking about it. But what Bernie wanted us to do, just like a lot of people, was to imagine a better world and then how we work towards it. So that's why I think that there is a really clear divide between what you say if you're a politician that needs to gain votes and what you say if you're an activist that's in the business of changing people's entire conception of the world, right? It's why I say that I believe in communism, not because Gavin and I were talking about this the other day, not because if I was running, I would say that I'm going to implement communism tomorrow, but because I think that's the vision that will lead us to a better world. I believe in anarcho-syndicalism, not because I think I can snap my fingers and say that we're all going to live more peacefully in this way, but I think it gives myself a fucking goal to strive for. And I think abolishing prisons, defunding the police, those give us very accurate images to strive for. And as far as for your terminology regarding Black Lives Matter, it's something that I've never really seen much of an issue with myself, though I'm not a Hispanic American, and obviously brown men, Hispanic men brutalized by the police at a much more disproportional rate than white guys are. So I could understand how that would feel a little alienating to you, and I would try and empathize with that. I just think that the entire point of Black Lives Matter is the fact that throughout the entire history of the United States, racism has been predicated not so much on a pro-whiteness, but on an anti-blackness, right? That's why Italians at first were considered race, whatever, but then they became white. And it's all about like expanding this definition of whiteness. So I think the idea behind the slogan Black Lives Matter was to confront that specific element of United States history that does build a lot of its systems specifically around an anti-blackness. And that was their goal, to start saying like, no, Black Lives Matter. Black lives are beautiful. Black lives are X, Y, and Z, because society in so many ways says that that's not the case. So that would be my defense of it. But Gavin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think when it comes to a term like that, I mean, I think that term came from the Black community. Like if I, as a white person, was trying to think of the best possible slogan to encompass the anti-police brutality movement, I maybe wouldn't have come up with that same thing. But I think that was directly from the Black community, and therefore I'm not going to say, no, you have to change it. You know, who am I to fucking tell them to change it? If they want to go with that slogan, then I think they have every right to. In the same way, if there was a group of Mexican or Hispanic, activists that wanted to popularize the slogan, Mexican Lives Matter, or Latino Lives Matter, or Brown Lives Matter, or whatever, in the same way, I wouldn't say, no, that's not a good slogan. We gotta come up with a new one. So generally I tend to just kind of go on what the activist community comes up with. If they decide they want to say defund the police and that's the best way to get their message across, again, maybe I think demilitarize the police is better, but what am I supposed to go to a protest and say, hey guys, take down that defund the police sign and here's a new one with a more polite slogan on it? Like, that's not really how it works, unfortunately. So we can sit here and say, well, I like this more than this, and maybe it would be better if it was this, and fucking do all this kind of whatever the term is,
song and dance.
Yeah, do the song and dance. Try to make it appeal to the most amount of people possible. And again, you might be able to convince me of that. I've even said that, like, if I was running for office, I would run on demilitarizing the police, not defunding the police, because exactly what we're talking about. I think that a lot of people would agree that we should demilitarize the police, or just saying reallocate the resources from the police department to other services. A lot of people that I know that are just kind of like normie liberals, they can get on board with that kind of a message. Defund the police and reallocate the resources. But yeah, I mean, obviously some of these terms have certain uses in certain contexts. As I've said, if you're at a protest, if you're at a rally and you're 10 feet away from a wall of pigs that are fucking spraying people down with tear gas, yeah, I like to shout, defund the fucking police. Fuck you guys. You know what I'm saying? It's like a nonviolent threat. Like, yeah, we're going to fucking defund you. Us, the taxpayers, we're going to defund your fucking department if you keep murdering people and abusing my fucking neighbors. I like that. I like the energy. I like the aggression. But again, there's different slogans for different contexts. And if I was running for office, I would probably say demilitarize the police or reallocate the resources or something to that effect. But again, I don't necessarily think it's the best idea either to like tone police activists. Not that that's what you're trying to do, Ramon, because I think you have a really good point. And I think that you're coming from a really genuine place. I totally understand that, but that would just be my, answer is like, I'm just not in the business of tone policing activists. And if that's the slogan they want to use, who am I to tell them not to? I'm not out there doing this hard work on the ground. I'll go to the rallies, I'll participate where I can. But if that's how people feel, if that's the phrases they want to go with, I think all the power to them. And as far as abolish prisons, I mean, I feel the same way. If you've been to a prison, if you've toured a fucking prison and seen the conditions there, then I think you would agree, abolish prisons. Like, I just think it's a matter of how much you know about this. So again, if you don't know anything and you're just a normal white picket fence American that's never come to terms with the reality of our justice system or our carceral system, then yeah, maybe a different approach is better. Sorry, didn't mean to throw that up on screen. Although you're not wrong, Michael. Anyway, that would be my response.
100%. Yeah. In the same way that if I was a politician, I believe in abolishing prisons, just like you said. If you've been to one, you will know the horror that we impose on everybody there, the clinical sterility of just fucking monstrous, punitive. I don't even know the words for it. It's just imposed suffering, and to a degree we don't need to have in our society at all. But if I was running, I would say end for-profit prisons as my slogan, because again, I'm trying to collect a broad banner. And that's the one other thing I would add. Everybody's like, "Wow, you guys are always so soft on politicians." I don't think we're soft on politicians. I just don't need a politician to say abolish prisons for me to be like, let's get behind this guy for that exact reason. I will say abolish prisons. I will say fuck every prison. I do believe that we could eliminate 99.9% of crime through allocating resources differently in this country. Or globally, we would have to go reach big. But that doesn't mean that overnight I expect some guy that's running for the fucking Senate to be like, yes, we're going to abolish crime. No, you are going to end the for-profit prison system, and then we're going to be one step closer to getting. And people will say that's reformism. It is reformism, but that's how you win gains, right? It's a matter of putting the ball really far out here with the activists and then dragging the fucking actual paper pushers along by their fucking shirt collars.
Yeah, straight up. But anyway, really appreciate the question, Ramon. I think it's a really interesting one. And we do have another question to get from you in a second, too. But we're going to get to these super chats first. So thank you so much, Ramon. Really thoughtful question. Thanks for typing that out and letting us know how you feel. And look, I mean, 100%, brother. I know what you're saying. I know where you're coming from, 100%. Thank you also, Matt Ocelot God. Always love seeing Mr. Matt Ocelot God in the chat, one of our longtime listeners. Perhaps a nationwide victims referendum where all prisoners get an opportunity for restorative justice, maybe via job programs, Green New Deal, etc. I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. And again, as long as they're being fairly compensated and it's not like the fucking slave labor that currently goes on in prisons with prison labor, I think that's a great idea. And again, you have to give people a pathway after the carceration ends, because assuming there is going to be some form of incarceration, you're going to have to provide people something of a path afterwards, or else they're just going to, return to society even more traumatized, even more, fucked up than they were beforehand. And probably now with a bunch of gang connections, because most people, join gangs when they are in prison. So yeah, you have to give them some sort of a path out. Rather than just making their situation even worse, not to excuse the crime that they committed in the first place. But if you're just going to take someone who committed a crime and fuck up their life even more to the point where it's completely beyond repair, then yeah, that's how you get repeat offenders. That's how you get people that literally intentionally commit crimes because they'd rather live in a prison where they get food than out in the fucking heat or out in the freezing cold with no food. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I mean, yeah, 100%. And even there's an easier way to begin this process that we need to reform our workers' rights legislation to say that, just because you've been in prison does not mean that they can impact your employability after that. One of the main problems, the baseline for recidivism in this fucking country, I would argue, is the fact that once you have a felony conviction, even it doesn't matter what the fuck it's for. It doesn't matter if you spent a day in prison. If you pled guilty and you check that felony box, good fucking luck working somewhere that's not Quiznos subs. Okay, it is fucking brutal. You can work in a dock somewhere breaking your backs for $12 an hour. Like you're gonna not make it. You're gonna fucking barely scrape by if you're a regular one person getting out of prison, hustling so fucking hard. God forbid you got a couple of kids to feed. Like they make it impossible. So what do they force people to do? They force them to make money the way they can. Criminally, under the ground, under the table. And what happens then? You got fucking probation officers keeping an eye on you. You got extra fucking eyes everywhere. That's why recidivism is so fucking high in this country. So even before we pitch a victims referendum, we need to stop handicapping people. Oh, Quiznos doesn't exist anymore. I'm fucking sorry. You know what I'm saying? Like, fucking we can't handicap people and then be like, well, why are you fucking going back to prison, you fucking piece of shit? It's like, obviously they go back to prison because they can't afford to live. The skills that they have left that will make them money to live, we've all deemed fucking illegal, right? If all I know how to do is fucking steal cars and work at fucking Subway, excuse me, then fucking I'm gonna steal cars because I can't fucking live working at Subway for $7.25 an hour and still feed my kids. So what am I supposed to do? Look at my starving children as I set them down and go to work for 8 hours a day, knowing I still won't be able to fucking feed them when I get back? No, you can't expect somebody to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to quickly I saw a super chat that I wanted to react to. But now I'm not seeing it again. So I guess we'll respond to this one next. Thank you so much, Addy the Bug Catcher. Really appreciate the $5, Addy. Controversial. What do you guys think of dim/demon or similar pronouns? One of my clients uses them and it makes conversations really hard. So I think you're talking about like the neopronouns, like where people like identify as like a demon or like a, like one of these really far out there situations. My stance is live and let live. If someone wants to identify as something crazy, that's their right to do so. And I'll do my best to respect that. Again, even if it's something really crazy. But I also understand what you're saying, Addy, that it can just make a conversation hard if you're like a professional and you're dealing with a client, one of many. And this guy's like, my pronouns are Zer, or like ookity bookity boppity boopity. Like, yeah, I get it. It's a little bit like, okay, I guess I'll try my best. Or like if you're like a professor, for example, and you have like 200 students and one of them has just wild pronouns. You're like, wait, now on top of everything else, I have to remember to call this dude some made up word. Like I can understand how that's a little bit cringy or a little bit annoying. But that being said, I still try to live and let live. I try not to judge people. If you want to identify as a fucking beluga whale, it's your right.
Yeah, I know like conservatives like to use these examples often to, and obviously not that you're doing this, Addy. I'm just saying a lot of times conservatives, people like Joe Rogan, even, whatever the fuck he wants to identify as politically, they use this as kind of an example to undermine the trans experience, right? They use this as a way of fucking, oh shit, sorry, I can't. They use this as a way of like kind of undermining the trans experience in general. They'll say, oh, this is, they're just doing what these people are doing. They're all just crazies. This is like a mental health, like fucking made up, fucking like blah, blah, blah. And to that, I say that I don't agree that that's a fair comparison at all. That being said, I have the same philosophy as Gavin, where I don't give a fuck at all. I literally don't care at all. Why the fuck would I not call you Dem or Demon or whatever the fuck? I might not call you anything because I don't know if we'd be homies, but like I'm not gonna call you something that you don't want to call. You know what I'm saying? Like,
here's what I would say. If you know someone who's like your client or whatever, and they're asking you to call you demon and demon self and shit, and you accidentally forget and slip up one time, and they get all triggered and get pissy at you and start calling you a bigot or something, that I could see being very annoying and very frustrating. But as long as they're like cool about it, and as long as they're like, I understand this is very out of the normal and that most people, are not used to using made up words as pronouns. As long as they're like understanding of that, I think you should just try to roll with the punches and again, live and let live. Again, if they're trying to scold you, oh, you forgot to call me demon and demon self, then I mean, all right, bro. Like, sorry. But yeah, I definitely understand. And again, I do think this is a smaller issue than like people sometimes act like I don't think there's really that many people out there that are using neopronouns. So I can definitely sympathize with where you're coming from, Eddie, though. And it is an interesting question. It's kind of like the otherkin thing, people that identify as animals, like I'm a cat or like I'm a dog or whatever. Like, okay, like, do what you got to do, bro. It's not any of my business. Again, just don't go around like fucking like scolding people and acting like you're oppressed if someone doesn't like put your food in a dog bowl on the ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to be honest, I feel like unless I'm mistaken, you could still just do the they them pronouns because that's going to be like neutral for everyone, which is what I always default to if I don't fucking know. I'll just be like, oh, I don't know what this person's pronouns are. Let's just give the old neutral they them pronouns when I'm speaking about them. And it also, I mean, when you're talking directly to somebody, how often do you really use their pronouns anyway? So I don't know. But yeah, thank you so much for the $5, Addy the Bug Catcher. I definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting question. Really appreciate that, Addy. We love hearing you or seeing you in chat, getting your feedback. Thank you so much. Also, thank you, Das Boss Fleisch. Really appreciate seeing you as well. good friend of the show. Thank you so much for the 199. Who's the greater threat, Trump or DeSantis? I've been thinking about this one a lot recently. Because obviously they're probably going to be the two guys going head to head in the Republican primary, assuming that DeSantis actually has the balls to take on Trump, which I'm not actually convinced of, but we'll see. I think it's hard to say which one's like definitively more dangerous. I think that each of them are dangerous in specific ways. Like with Trump, I think Trump will basically do or say whatever he can to get elected. He doesn't really have much of an underlying ideology. He doesn't have much of like a foundational ideological basis. He kind of just, throws shit at the wall and sees what'll stick, which can be very dangerous. But I still don't think that's as dangerous as someone like DeSantis, who I absolutely do see as an ideologue. I see him as a genuine Christian fascist. Whereas Trump, I think Trump is more than willing to kind of try to dog whistle to the Christian fascists and, say what he wants to appease them, which again is probably almost as dangerous. But DeSantis is more like Mike Pence, in my opinion, where I really do view him as he thinks he's on a mission. He wants to implement his ideology into law. He wants to destroy the so-called degenerate left. He wants America to be run like a theocracy, essentially. I really do believe that. Whereas, again, I think Trump is a little bit more haphazard with his ideological approach and also a lot more lazy. I think DeSantis would be a lot more, he would be actually trying to get more laws passed, trying to implement more things. Whereas Trump, as we all saw in his presidency, was lazy as fuck. He did the tax cut because that was already set up by Paul Ryan. That was already ready to go. It's not like he had to do anything to make that happen. It was just all ready to go because that's all that Republicans really care about is tax cuts. But I do think DeSantis would, try to implement some like crazy don't say gay style legislation for the country at large, as he has in Florida, or go after trans people's ability to receive gender affirming care, stuff like that. I think that's a serious threat. So again, in that sense, I do view DeSantis as more dangerous in the sense that he's a real ideologue, a real Christian fascist at heart. But the only thing about DeSantis that I think is less dangerous, and it's not even close, is that I do think if he lost an election, he would, respect the results of said election. I think he would step down, unless it was really fucking close and there could actually be a court case like in 2000. But if it was like a Joe Biden versus Donald Trump situation and it was clear who won, I do think he would step down and just respect the peaceful transfer of power. I can't say the same thing about Trump. Obviously, because we all saw that he did the exact opposite. The first president in American history to not step down and not concede after losing election. So that's also important. And in that specific arena, I absolutely do think Trump is even more dangerous.
Yeah. Look, obviously they're both not good. They're both bad. I think that really what it comes down to is whether or not how you weigh the things that Gavin laid out, right? How do you weigh a guy like Trump's absolute and total narcissism, which, obviously will entail impulse decisions that come about without any consideration for the lives of anyone else or the experiences of anybody else. As we saw throughout his time in office, he would act rashly upon impulses, and when nobody around him was able to stop him, fucking Qasem Soleimani would get assassinated or something crazy would happen, right? He would send off a fiery storm of tweets to Kim Jong-un trying to fucking provoke another nuclear power, which, it sounds hilarious, but it also, I mean, that is dangerous, right? You can't fucking provoke a fucking nuclear power over Twitter and try and a guy that has been determined to, fucking be independent from the United, pushing that guy around, poking him around, not the best move when you're the president. That's just bad diplomacy. So that's obviously the kind of bullshit that you have to deal with when you're dealing with Donald Trump, but he'd rather eat cheeseburgers and drink Diet Cokes than actually go down on the floor and legislate. As you pointed out, Gavin, he only got the fucking package with a bow tie on it, tax bill done. Couldn't get the repeal and replacement of Obamacare because of his such petty fucking grievances with John McCain. He was ready to sabotage his entire relationship to the GOP, which he'd spent his whole life building his fucking, esteem there. And then at the end of his life said, fuck you, we're not getting rid of Obamacare. Not because he has any he ran against Obamacare literally in the presidential campaign, but because he hated Trump so bad. And that's a really interesting telling part of Washington that everybody's fucking personal disagreements will impact their voting, not just Donald Trump's. But then you have the other side of that, right? Ron DeSantis, and you have an actual serious legislator. And yes, it's fucking cringy and dopey when he tries to imitate Trump, but that's just because he's so fucking power hungry, right? And he's always out there. He's always out there doing shit, the exact opposite of Donald Trump. Like Donald Trump liked to do one thing, and that was host Donald Trump rallies because he was the center of attention. He could walk up, he could stand there for 45 minutes to an hour, get the crowd in his hand, and then leave and go eat more cheeseburgers and eat more Diet Coke, right? That's what he liked. I think that you have to go with a guy like Ron DeSantis just because of his capability. But that's not to undersell the fucking threat of a guy like Trump. I just think that Trump is too incompetent. I take him so much less seriously than Ron DeSantis. I think that Ron DeSantis is a guy that will set his mind to something and he will actually work to achieve it. Whereas like Donald Trump is so used to having things come to him easily that he's never really like fucking rigorously worked at something that he didn't love and have come naturally to him. It's astonishing that the presidency came so naturally to him, but it really did. It almost feels like it fell in his lap. Like he was the right place at the right time and he fucking won almost in a way. Whereas Ron DeSantis has been fucking just like a mean dog that's been fucking left in a dark room and caned over and over, and he's ready to fucking come out and get it, and he'll do anything to be president. He'll shake all the hands. He'll do so. I just think that's more dangerous because I think that guy is going to do fucking anything. And he'll actually do it, whereas Trump would be willing to do anything, but he's just too fucking lazy to get the worst of it done.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Also, shout out to you, the boss. I saw this comment, really agreed with it. Speaking a little bit about, how we should deal with people in jail and stuff like that. The marijuana industry should be nationalized and public unionized jobs should be given to all the people locked up for drugs. I could not agree with that more, the boss. I think that's a great suggestion there. So thank you for sending that in. I totally agree. And another super chat from...
While we're at it, we can also nationalize a fuck ton of other industries and give people union jobs too. That would be base. But yeah, like where you're thinking about.
Yeah, the more nationalization, the better, as far as I'm concerned. But thank you, Jose. Really appreciate you, Jose L, for the super chat. Norway has the #1 best prison rehabilitation policies, and they still have a 20% recidivism rate. Hopefully, the U.S. can get to that level one day. Yeah, I think that a lot of the Nordic countries, obviously they're not perfect. I'm not saying they are, but especially when it comes to the way they do prison, that should definitely be a model for how we do it in other developed countries. I mean, obviously everywhere, but especially here. In fact, I remember, Zach, that Michael Moore movie, Where to Invade Next. If you haven't seen that one, I would definitely recommend at least watching the section on prisons, because Michael Moore goes to, I think, Norway, or one of the Nordic countries, probably Norway. And they tour a prison there. And like, it looks great. Like, there's activities for the prisoners to do. It's clean. There's not like sexual assault rampant. You can take like cooking classes. You can take other kind of classes to improve yourself as a human being. Because again, the point should be rehabilitation, not just, inflicting psychological and physical damage on people as a punitive measure. That's kind of hypocritical as a justice system. So yeah, definitely check out that documentary. From what I know about those countries, they do a really good job.
Yeah, there's that great scene in Where to Invade Next where they're in the kitchen and the dude's just like fucking chopping up vegetables and stuff, and he's got a big kitchen knife, and Michael Moore's like, "So man, what are you in here for?" And he's like, "Murder." And obviously it's set up to be like he's got this big old fucking knife chopping, and he's like, "Yeah, I murdered somebody." And fucking Michael Moore is like, you know what I mean? It's like, but, and he's like, "Yeah, that's that. Hey man, well, they just let you chop stuff up in here?" And he's like, "Yeah, been in here 3 years." The guy shows him his room. He's got like an Xbox and shit in there. It's like, it's not about like punitive reform. It's about like, we need to change your brain so that you can actually live in our society. And if we just punish you and treat you like a dog, you're going to act like one when we fucking let you out. Right. So yeah, anyway, really, really interesting thing on prison rehabilitation. And the one thing I will say, I've been reading this new David Graeber book, and he points out a lot of the wisdom of the Native American tribes that were here before the United States. And one of the things that in the conversation, so there's these interesting things, and I've never read the source material, right? Just the English translation that David Graeber and the other guy's named David too, but they wrote this book together. I've been going through, and it's a dialogue between a lot of like the early French fur trappers and the tribes that were living in what is now like the Great Lakes and like Detroit, Canada kind of area, and they all were completely without hierarchy, right? They would have a chief, but he had no like physical control over anybody. And whenever there were rare instances where, you know, obviously there were wars that would go down, and so people would be killed that way. But whenever there was a big dispute, like somebody did something wrong within the tribe, you know, that they would consider it a failure of the entire society, right? So say that one person, you know, killed another member of the tribe, which was rare but did occur, right? They would collect all of this resources and bounty from the tribe and make an offering to that family. And it was like the wrongdoing was the entire tribe because they didn't create an environment where you know, those types of things would not occur. Very interesting and a very different response, right? The punishment was not delivered to the person who committed the crime, but it was seen as an intense and deep failure of the entire tribe. So, you know, that would be another way. We have a very like, you know, Westernized understanding of you know, prison rehabilitation. But if you look back to, you know, the people that were on this fucking bunch of earth before us, they had a really, really, really different understanding of prisons as well. So just a little interesting tidbit. And shout out to you for chatting from us all the way in Colombia, I believe. That's, I believe, Colombian pesos.
Oh, hell yeah. I was wondering what that currency was as well. Yeah, thank you so much. Interesting question for sure. And yeah, seemingly they know what they're doing over there in the Nordic part of the world as far as prison goes. Definitely a model. So yeah, and that's a good anecdote too about the Native American tribe, Zach. Thank you also, Brian, for the $4.99. Why are so many leftist politicians so unwilling to support Palestinian rights? Really? You don't know, Brian?
Starts with an A and ends with a
There's unfortunately one simple reason, and they don't want to get Jeremy Corbyn. You know, the sad thing about AIPAC is that they have, you know, figured out a masterful strategy as far as anyone that pushes back on Israel and anyone that speaks out for Palestinian rights, and that's immediately to label them an anti-Semite. And when you take a, you know, complex foreign, you know, situation, foreign policy kind of situation that, you know, a lot of Americans, they know about Israel and Palestine. They've like heard of people talk about it, but they might not know the nitty gritty. They might just know what they've seen on TV or something. So, you know, they probably don't know as much about this as the people that, you know, really care about it. So a lot of politicians, they're like, it's not even worth it. It's not even worth it because these people don't know enough about the situation. They don't understand the reality of the situation. So for me to be, you know, come out here and make this my number one issue only to be smeared constantly as an anti-Semite, it's just not worth it. Now, that's not the approach I would take. Obviously, I don't think that, you know, being smeared as a bigot or whatever is enough of a reason to not take the correct stance and the moral stance on an issue like that. So obviously, we, you know, fight back against that. But that's the reason why most politicians on the left don't get involved in that specific question, just because they're terrified of being called an anti-Semite by the media. And, you know, unfortunately, that has been effectively weaponized against a lot of left politicians, like, as I mentioned, Jeremy Corbyn, who just never was able to escape those bogus accusations of anti-Semitism. Like, that's like what he's synonymous with. And a lot of, you know, to a lot of people in the UK, they just say, Jeremy Corbyn, oh, you mean that guy that hates Jews? Like that level of fucking smear. So that's why it's unfortunate. Hopefully more people, you know, push back on that and more people get educated about the situation. Because obviously, if you actually understand the situation and Israel's continued encroachment on Palestine and ethnic cleansing of Palestinian people, obviously you realize it's so much more complex than what a lot of people want you to think. Like if you just hear Ben Shapiro talking about it or something, you just think, well, all these crazy fucking Middle Eastern people are bombing Israel, these peaceful Israelis. Like, you know, they're just living peacefully and trying to, you know, keep to themselves, and these fucking savages are bombing them on the daily basis. Like any, you know, that's how they sell it to you. But obviously, if you actually do some research, you know, find out, listen to Palestinian activists tell their experiences, you realize that it's the complete opposite.
Yeah, and look at a guy like Bernie Sanders. That, I mean, this dude's the actual Jewish man. He's the fucking senator, right? And you know, he's been better than a lot of people on fucking Israel, and they still have kind of fucking, you've seen really nasty articles written about the guy, and he's not as hardline on Palestinian liberation as I want him to be at all. You know, honestly, I think the best elected fucking congressperson in the House or Senate, I think is probably Rashida Tlaib, honestly, as far as like, you know, firm solidarity with Palestinian people. She herself has family in Palestine. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it is it is a big problem in American politics. It's twofold. There's a lot of money that's going to advance it. I mean, remember when Ilhan Omar tweeted, "It's all about the Benjamins," and it was 100% accurate, and it was 100% fair to do, and it is 100% true that AIPAC donates a fuck ton of money. It's not anti-Semitic at all to say that. It's factual, right? And what's anti-Semitic is assuming that every Jewish person fucking supports the fucking state of Israel, right? Gavin and I went to a fucking pro-Palestine rally in Kansas City during the shelling of Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood and the fucking forced removal of residents of that neighborhood, and there was bombings and all kinds of shit. All kinds of diversity at that fucking protest. Obviously, you had Palestinian people. You had, Jewish brothers and sisters with the "not in my name" signs, right? This is a fucking issue that when you know about it, everybody draws a fine line there. What it is it is a military-industrial complex issue, and they have weaponized the Jewish faith as a way of the United States continuing to support basically a stronghold in the Middle East that will act as our proxy whenever we tell them to. We don't give a fuck about the people, the victims of the Holocaust, or however they fucking frame it to people whenever they, get all up in arms about it.
Yeah, very well said. But it's definitely frustrating, Brian. I definitely understand what you're saying, how it seems like, so many politicians are afraid to speak the obvious truth about that situation, but that is why, unfortunately. But really appreciate the super chat, Brian. We always appreciate your comments. Thank you also, Bruce Stevens, for the 199. Have y'all abandoned your Screen Fiends channel? We haven't made any content for Screen Fiends in a while. At some point we might, so stay tuned. If we feel like we're in the mood for it. But yeah, seemingly we've had more success just having those kind of conversations about movies over here on the Vanguard. Sometimes we'll spend the last like 20-30 minutes of our show talking about some movie news, because if you guys don't know, Zach and I are huge movie buffs. We're really into film and the whole film community. That's probably like our second big passion after politics, at least myself. So yeah, the problem with the Screen Fiends channel is just there's so much competition in that genre of YouTube. It's easier to get some traction and to get noticed when you're talking about politics, because not as many people are doing it. But everyone and their fucking mother is making YouTube videos about movies. It's like one of the most popular subjects to talk about on YouTube. So therefore it's just hard to get traction. It's hard to get views. And obviously it's not all about the numbers, but when you're putting a lot of work into something and you're spending a lot of time making thumbnails and editing and all that stuff, it does start to feel kind of pointless when you're getting like 75 views a video, right? So might as well talk about it over here on the Vanguard, where we have an audience that will listen. But that being said, we had a lot of fun doing that channel. And stay tuned. Maybe at some point we'll drop some more content on it. It's a fun show.
Oh yeah, I'm always down to talk about movies on the Vanguard main channel whenever we get around to it. And honestly, during the Halloween months of fall, Gavin and I always just naturally we gravitate towards watching a lot more films together. And there's so much political commentary to be unpacked, specifically in the horror genre, right? I mean, Gavin, I think in college you took a whole class on like fucking feminism and horror cinema and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of really rich subject matter, and it's not just feminism and horror. It's all kinds of political commentary steeped in the horror genre. So it's both engaging, it's potent, it stays with you. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you guys see a couple of fucking discussions on, we do another annual discussion on Videodrome, or we talk about like fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or like anything like that, whatever goes. You know what I mean? This is the Vanguard, and we want to start doing more late night kind of stuff as it gets a little more creepy, kooky outside. It'll be fun. So stay tuned, Bruce, and appreciate the super chat.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bruce. And it's always cool to see people that were a fan of that channel. Like I said, we had a fun time with it. It's just that we're so busy with the Vanguard too. That's the other thing. It's like you only have so much energy to put into making content for YouTube. And when one channel is just getting a fraction of the engagement as the other, you gotta focus on what's getting results. Unfortunately, I know that sounds like super capitalist or whatever, but it's true. But thank you so much, Bruce. Really appreciate it. And yeah, stick around. We'll talk more about movies on the Vanguard after the main show's over. If you guys want.
Gavin's going, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense.
And my heart, I'm a capitalist, guys. Just kidding. But yeah, thank you so much, Bruce. Really appreciate that. Let's get to another super chat, another patron question. So keep the super chats coming, guys. We'll make sure to address all of them. But let's take a look at the second part of this question from Ramon. Again, Ramon asked us this previous question, and there's a part 2, so we're going to answer that now. All right, Last quick one. I think you guys were wrong on Esperanza. She was on bad faith with Bree and had Kim Iverson discussing Twitter bans, saying that she is not a free speech activist, so she therefore doesn't have to defend free speech. Yes, she is a trans rights activist, but that doesn't mean you can have principles on other issues. I mean, who is to say that Twitter won't be like, oh, well, calling someone a transphobic is a hate speech, therefore you're banned. Anywho, sorry for the super long comment. If you guys actually read it, super thanks. By the way, love the cats. And super based when Zach says he would be the kind of president that the CIA would assassinate. True. Also, IDK, why? But my mind is blown that you guys stream in the same room. Best of luck and keep up the great work. Yeah, it's always hilarious when people's minds get blown by that fact. A lot of people don't realize that we're in the same studio. But thank you so much, Ramon. Really appreciate the like respectful pushback on our commentary. I can definitely understand why you came to that conclusion. The point was not that, because I agreed with overall I think that Kim Iverson has a lot of unfortunate opinions in that regard, but I do agree that I personally am not in favor of banning anyone off Twitter. Like, I'm not. Unless you're doxing or like threatening violence or whatever. I think that's my opinion. But I'm also not the fucking person in control of Twitter. I'm not the one writing their fucking terms of service and deciding who it gets used against. So my point was just that if Kim Iverson really cares about Jordan Peterson getting banned on Twitter so much, then she should be fighting to have Twitter and other social medias regulated under the First Amendment. And really the only way to do that is to nationalize those social media companies. And that's not something she was arguing for. She describes herself as a capitalist, and what Twitter was doing was just capitalism. In their opinion, it's a bad look to be platforming transphobes like Jordan Peterson. That's why they banned him. So again, if you're going to be a capitalist saying, oh, well, why isn't this social media company regulating people within the First Amendment? That doesn't make any sense. Like, why would they? If it's not in the interest of their bottom line, then why would they do that? The whole point of capitalism is to maximize your profit. So I agree as a communist that absolutely they should be regulated in accordance with the First Amendment. I think, people should be able to say what they want. And if you don't like it, you can block their ass. But my point was just that Esperanza, clearly her main focus as an activist was trans rights, not censorship. So while I agree, I would have preferred she be more principled in that arena. My point was just that it seemed like the main focus of her commentary was protecting her fellow the fellow people within the trans community. And if she views this kind of hate speech on Twitter as a big problem that's affecting them negatively, I can understand why she would put that at a precedent above, Twitter's terms of service and how it's implemented. That was my point. Obviously, I'm probably a little bit more pro free speech. I'm more of a free speech absolutist than Esperanza, perhaps. But that's the point I was making.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fair. Look, Gavin and I have our own position outside of our analysis of that fucking bad faith episode, right? So Gavin and I both would not ban you for Twitter for saying disgusting shit, even though I think that a lot of the shit that people say on Twitter is disgusting. I think that they're fucking, making horrible points. But, in order to reserve my right to dunk on them ferociously and without mercy, I have to say that I want them to be able to continue to say that disgusting shit like Jordan Peterson does, or all this other stuff where, we have to be able to dispel all of the fucking hypocrisy and the fucking garbage. Otherwise, it'll just go to some insulated area where I don't see it, I don't hear about it, and therefore I can't dispel it. And that's how you get weird fuckers like Andrew Tate who have this like fucking weird cult that emerge out of nowhere. And then you're like, holy fuck, there's like a whole generation of fucking nosball boys that think women are property and all kinds of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like fucking crazy stuff. So that's why I believe that it's better to have that shit on the surface. I want to know about that. I want to know that that's happening. So Gavin and I can start feeding that into some content, being like, hey guys, do you see this? This is why this is X, Y, and Z for why this is fucking terrible. And that's what we do with the anti-trans commentary, right? We say X, Y, and Z. This is why this doesn't make sense. This is inconsistent with all of the other principles that we have here on the left. And here's how you can be pro free speech and also anti, hate rhetoric directed towards, the trans community, which is undeniable. That's the other thing that frustrates me. I hate having the conversation about whether or not this is happening. Of course, it's happening. The conversation now has to be, how do we respond to it? Obviously, Esperanza has her position, and that's her right. We have our position, and that was the distinction that we were making. But anyway, yeah, shout out to you, Ramon, for the fucking based questions that we really were able to sink our teeth into. And yes, I would be assassinated by the CIA, and our cats are based.
Yeah, really appreciate that, man. And trust me, like censorship is definitely one of my like top issues. In fact, we might be debating another prominent streamer or commentator on that issue, because I do think that there's way too much like pro censorship cheerleading that comes from the left. I think it's terrible optics. It makes us look like censorious, petty, whiny authoritarians. Honestly, I do. And when you do censor people for, problematic opinions, where do you think they're going to go? They're going to go to one of these like fucking festering grounds of white supremacy like 8chan or Kiwi Farms or Gab, or one of these like free speech alternatives that's actually literally just like a bunch of Nazis, like literal Nazis. And then they're just going to become further radicalized because they think oh, I'm a victim of censorship by the fucking deep state or whatever. So now I'm going to become a full-fledged fucking fascist. That's what happens. And that's why I'm against it. So, really appreciate the question. I totally understand where you're coming from. But yeah, that's what I would say to that. And in the same way, I think that Kim Iverson can also, what's the phrase? Walk and chew bubblegum at the same time too. She can also, be principled in her solidarity with the trans community while also being a free speech absolutist or activist, which she's not, because she threatened to sue someone for insulting her. So that's also what I'd say to that. I would say that Kim Iverson is even more unprincipled and even more of a bad faith actor. But that's just my opinion.
Oh, 100%. And that was the biggest egg on your face moment for Kim Iverson, where if you're like grandstanding on all these anti-trans issues as if your fucking one diehard principle is free speech, and then you could blow that up the second people on the internet are mean to you. It's like, okay, maybe you just wanted to fucking say transphobic shit and not get any pushback for it. Anyway, do you want to do super chats? Cool. Thoughts on the midterm with new polling? Crazy day yesterday, lads. Hope you both well and keeping it real. Lots of love from SF. Well, shout out to you, Kelly, and lots of love back. Yeah, Galvin and I have been following the midterm polling, I would say pretty closely. I would say that the one thing that's blown my mind about this is how, in response to the Roe ruling, how fucking everything has changed, just been fucking exploded. Races that you did not think were going to be close at all, now potentially up for grabs, right? I thought for sure, back in before the primary that, the Warnock would lose his reelection. I thought that it was going to be a tough battle for John Fetterman, even if he did win the primary over Conor Lamb, which I was stoked about. I thought that, there was going to be a lot of close races. And then I'm looking across the board, and I'm like, I actually think that the Democrats are going to keep the Senate. I think they're going to keep the Senate and lose the House, but they're going to lose the House more marginally even than I initially expected. The problem is they just can't win the House with the way that it's been gerrymandered to all fuck. I think they'll lose probably a couple dozen seats. But I think I think they'll pick up the Senate. I think that they'll get, Pennsylvania. I think they'll get Georgia. I think that there's a good chance that they get Arizona. So, those are big W's. Then they pick up Nevada. Oh boy, bam, changing.
Dark Brandon rises. Yeah. Now it is crazy. It seems like the Republicans have totally squandered their red wave. It looked like there really was going to be an absolute, red tsunami. And now, if anything, it's going to be like a small wave. I think they'll probably still hold on to the House unless, Joe Biden legalizes weed, in which case he might clinch the House as well, to be completely honest. But yeah. Sorry. Did I say the opposite? Keep the House? Oh, sorry. I meant I still think the Republicans are going to get the House. Obviously, the Democrats currently have it. Sorry. But yeah, it seems like the Republicans were going to just destroy. Like, they were going to take the Senate, the House, and it was going to be like not even close. Now it seems like the Democrats are probably going to keep the Senate because of how bad a lot of the nominees are on the Republican side. Guys like Dr. Oz, or these clowns like Herschel Walker that Donald Trump endorsed. I don't think those guys are going to make it. Obviously, there's a lot of races like here in Missouri. I still think that Eric Schmidt will win. I don't think that the Democrat in our state has any chance. But the Trump endorsed Senate candidates like Dr. Oz and Herschel Walker, yeah, I think they're going to slaughter. I think they're straight up going to slaughter, and it's all the fault of Donald Trump for imposing these insane litmus tests and fostering all of this division within his own party, leading to a much weaker party come midterms. All these candidates suck, and all of these even the candidates in the House races, a lot of them, to win a Republican primary, you have to be like the furthest right, biggest Trump head out there. And unfortunately, it's a lot harder to win in a statewide election as one of those kind of candidates. So yeah, I think they're pretty much fucked. I still think they'll probably keep the House, but it's going to be way, way less of a tsunami than it initially seemed like it would be.
100%. And yeah, I was just looking at my interactive map that I've been following every day with the fucking polling. Right now, I have it set that Dems are going to take PA, Illinois, Georgia, Colorado, Arizona, and Nevada, and the disputed races, right? Yeah, I think that's going to leave them with 51 Dems in the Senate. So anyway, that's what I've been following. I haven't paid nearly as much attention to all the House races because there's a fuck ton of them, and yeah.
Absolutely. But thank you so much, Kelly. Really appreciate the 499. Really good question, too. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pedro, for the 350. Will Forward Party run a presidential candidate in 2024? Probably. I mean, we'll have to see, but I think that's definitely what Yang and the crew wants to happen. The unfortunate thing is that I imagine it's going to be someone who's a little bit difficult to get excited about. Someone like Mark Cuban, some fucking billionaire elitist type that they're going to try to foster on the American people. So yeah, I do think it'll happen. Unfortunately, I doubt it'll be anyone that we can get all that excited about.
Yeah, I think that if all else fails, Yang will just run himself as the forward fucking candidate. So I think that they definitely are going to have a fucking presidential candidate. That's what my back plan is. I think that's the back plan. I think that they shoot for the stars. They try and get like Mark Cuban and Liz Cheney on a Unity ticket or some shit like that. And then, fucking, okay, call Jesse. Jesse says maybe. Okay. Deadline launch. Yang says, hey guys, I'm going to be a new forward party president. Wow. Let's do the math. Let's move forward. Guys, come on. It's on the horizon.
Yeah, God, it sounds terrible. Obviously, if Jesse somehow is the nominee for the Forward Party, I would fucking vote for him. But that's literally the only person that I would be interested in that they could potentially run. But yeah, it's most likely going to be some elitist billionaire, someone like Mark Cuban. And yeah, I'm not voting for that shit.
Yeah, and the one thing I will say, because people have asked us over and over and over again, Jesse might do this, and you guys have been critical about this. We did have a brief chat where we got to hear a little bit of what, per Jesse's mind, he about corporate dollars. Right? I mean, this dude is absolutely not interested in running with corporate dollars. He did not run with corporate dollars in 1998. He would never run with corporate dollars, and he would straight up refuse and, say something along, don't even tell me about it. I don't want to hear anything about this. We're not talking about this. It's not happening. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the corporate influence if they did go with Jesse. Mark Cuban, Liz Cheney, it's going to be like wall-to-wall billboard of corporations. But a guy like Jesse, even in a party that I don't trust, it would be like Bernie Sanders in a party I don't trust. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. But thank you, Pedro. Really appreciate that. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Do you think, Zach, that if they do run someone like Mark Cuban, do you think he could get on the debate stage?
Yeah, dude, liberals fucking love Mark Cuban, and so do a bunch of other people with money, right? Because again, he satisfies the myth of the liberal billionaire, guys. That is like the whole bedrock of Democratic policy visions, right? We just need the one smart savior. If you are a billionaire, it is because of your hard work, your ingenuity. You are smarter than everyone else. You can tell us the solutions, right? And none of those solutions are going to threaten anybody else's ability to make a buck because you've got $1 billion fucking dollars. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think that he's going to get on the big debate stage because he's not a threat at all. He's just going to give a different solution for capitalism, which is always allowed.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Pedro, once again. And thank you, Das Busa Fleischer, for the 499. I believe there's no such thing as too much garlic, only not enough garlic. I know I'm right, of course, but do you agree? Unfortunately, I do not. I do not agree with that. And I do love garlic. Don't get me wrong. But here's one thing I have a real issue with when it comes to garlic. If you go to like a pizza restaurant, for example, and you get garlic on your pizza and there's literal like pieces of garlic on it, like not grated, not garlic powder, but like there's literal like just fucking chunks of garlic all over it. Not a fan.
Zarpino.
Yeah, like Sarpinas would do. That shit's nasty. Like again, I love garlic. I love the flavor of garlic. It's kind of like onions. Like I love when onions are in things to like season it and give it that onion flavor. But if I'm coming across a fucking chunk of fat onion every bite I take, pisses me off. I don't like the texture of it. I don't like the fucking consistency. And again, it's just too much at that point. So I feel the same way about garlic. Same with like pasta. Sometimes you'll be eating pasta and there's just literal like pieces of garlic in it. Like they just literally chopped up a piece of garlic into like 4 bits and then threw it in there. Like I do think that's a little bit too much. It's just overwhelming. It's too much garlic flavor because garlic is a strong flavor. You don't really need that much of it to make it taste like garlic. So if you're just like chomping through chunks of that shit. It kind of overwhelms the other shit in the dish. But what do you think, Zach?
Well, yeah, I was laughing because I used to work at a pizza place that Gavin used to order from pretty freaking frequently, and we had the shittiest garlic fucking topping because our job, like everybody that worked at this place, I don't fucking care if you guys know Sarpino's Pizza, don't fucking eat there. Fucking, we had the shit. It was like a good job for like a high school stoner to have because everybody was just getting fucking wrecked at work and not doing their job and hanging out and talking shit about music and movies or whatever. But when you prepped garlic, you just had this one like pizza cutter and you would put out a fuck ton of garlic and just across it and just leave like big ass fucking hunks of garlic. Whenever anybody would order garlic, we'd just take a fucking hunk of it and throw it on the bottom of the pizza. It would get burned. It was fucking terrible. But we didn't care about our jobs nor the quality of the product that we were producing. And that's how it goes with most places. So yeah, I'm not too much of a garlic guy either. I do like garlic though. And there's an old saying around Kansas City that garlic is the ketchup of intellectuals. And so it sounds like Das Bosch Flights eats like a 8-year-old Midwesterner, an intellectual.
That's hilarious. Well, thank you so much for the super chat, Das Busa Fleisch. And yeah, like I said, I do like garlic. I'm not trying to talk shit. I love garlic. But that's just my opinion on it. Thank you so much, though. And thank you also, Daniel, Transmail organizer that ran for state office here. I'd love to have a chat with y'all at Daniel for VC on all platforms. Keep up the great work, gents. Absolutely, Daniel. I followed you back on Twitter, and we can definitely talk about setting something like that up. Would definitely like to hear about the experiences that you had running for state office as a transgender person. So yeah, would definitely love to chat. Thanks for the super chat.
Yeah, shout out to you, Daniel. Of course, you're welcome on the Vanguard to chat about your fucking political journey. And yeah, shout out to you for the super chat. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Veronica, for the $1.99. Have you guys looked into the Agape boarding school? Yeah, I've done a little bit of research, looked into it, read a few articles. We're not going to do a segment on it on this live stream, but we can definitely talk about it in a future live stream, do a quick segment breaking that down because it is a pretty insane industry.
Yeah, it looks wild. Like I said, Gavin and I've looked. I know that it's like a boarding school for boys. It's in the middle of Missouri, which is where Gavin and I live. So I'm familiar with like some elements of this, but yeah, not enough to do like a deep dive where we're gonna like expound upon this. But I know it's on your radar, Veronica. It's on our radar.
Yeah, really appreciate that. Thank you, Matt Ocelot God, once again for the $5. Your pick for worst movies with a great soundtrack. My pick, Twilight movies. That's hilarious. God, I'd have to think about that for a second. Nothing. I'm not. Do you have anything on the top of your head that comes to mind, Zach?
I'm trying to think. I have great movies with great soundtracks in my mind. I don't watch a lot of fucking terrible movies. That's the thing. I'm such a I'm a piece of shit. I don't give anything a try unless I've Googled it. I'm like, fuck, is this movie gonna be worth my time? Finite Life, so many fucking wonderful pieces of cinema. Like sometimes the crowd will love it, and then I'll watch it and I'll be like, this is fucking bullshit. But I never really go into anything that's been like just fucking panned across the board and like, yeah, besides like, you know what I mean? Like I'll go see shit that I know I'm not gonna like Spider-Man, but I don't go into shit where I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fucking bad. Like I just wouldn't go see Twilight. Like I would just not go see it. I wouldn't go see the Marvel movies or anything like that. The only thing that really comes to mind, it's not even that it's a great soundtrack, it's just a terrible movie that used its soundtrack like way too much, was the first Suicide Squad movie with Will Smith in it. Every single time they wanted you to fucking feel any kind of emotion, it would be like, welcome to the jungle, and then like just start montaging like crazy shit happening, and like I don't know. So that was, and not that I don't fucking like Guns N' Roses, but anyway, that just comes to my mind when you're asking about.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that movie, has a crazy. That movie was actually edited by a trailer company. Did you know that?
That makes sense.
Yeah, like it's the whole movie is just like a trailer, but it's a feature-length film. That's why there's so much reliance on music to set the tone. But yeah, I really can't think of anything Matt Ocelot got. I'm sure there's some like great, like some really cheesy 80s movies that have like a banging soundtrack, or I just have to think about it for a little bit more. But it's definitely funny that you say the Twilight films. I've never actually sat through the Twilight movies for obvious reasons, so I can't really speak to the soundtrack, but that is a funny choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to you, Matt. Also, like, that was a fun question. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you, Addie the Bug Catcher, once again for the $5. Really appreciate that, Addie. Bernie is the only politician who has come out and supported, if not now, American Jewish organization that supports Palestine. Yeah, I'm not actually familiar with that specific organization, but that tracks with what I know about Bernie and his position. Obviously, he might not be as hardcore as I am on that specific issue, but yeah, he's definitely one of the best and one of the only politicians that's willing to accurately analyze the U.S. relationship with Israel and the Israeli relationship with Palestine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Bernie's way better than almost everybody else about that. I just, we always say like we have hardcore, lines in the sand, and Bernie doesn't quite make those. He's not going to be all like BDS is based, fuck Israel, like, shit like.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much, Constantine Rumel, for the $5. Oh God, I knew we were gonna have to talk about this.
I got you,
Got
Gavin.
this?
I got this. Look, Aaron Mate. I liked the guy. I thought he was fine. I don't give a shit, right? We have massive political disagreements, whatever. But miss me with all the fucking pearl clutching about all this shit. Have you ever heard of the Jimmy Dore show? The number one fucking criticism that people lobby at the Jimmy Dore show, fucking second home to Aaron Mate, is that his fucking candor is like fucking, too vulgar, or that he's like too abrasive, and everybody's always like, oh, you're just tone policing him. So for that, it was just so ironic and so laughable that we would get like pushback from people who are Jimmy Dore stands that are like, you guys were rude to Aaron Mate. It's like, look, he's a big fucking boy. He wants to send me an email and say you were fucking rude to me. Maybe I would say, okay, hey man, sorry it went down like that. But this fucking mob of people that love it when people get their ass ripped on the internet, like, no, sorry. I don't fucking feel bad about it. I don't think Gavin should apologize. I don't fucking care.
Yeah, basically. And I guess we can segue into the next super chat, which is unrelated news. Why did your interview with Mate sound like the jank interview of Bree? So again, like Zach said, I'm willing to admit that it wasn't my best performance. Like, I'm not saying that I fucking destroyed Aaron Mate, or that it was like the best debate performance that we've done. No, I'm not saying that. I'm obviously willing to take criticism and hear the feedback. And I understand that a lot of people think that I, went a little bit too aggressive and I got a little bit too triggered perhaps. And I understand that. So I'm not saying that I did a great job or whatever. But yeah, spare me the fucking pearl clutching, spare me the tone policing. And as far as it sounding like the Jank interview, Jank started out that interview by saying, why are you friends with Jimmy Dore? That was basically his first question to Brianna Joy Gray. He was trying to tie her to Jimmy and Tulsi Gabbard. We got like 40 minutes into the Aaron interview before anyone else got brought up. And I wasn't even trying to talk about Jackson Hinkle specifically. The reason that got brought up is because I wanted Aaron to react to Ben Norton's tweet. I didn't even want to talk about Jackson Hinkle. He's just, obviously a part of this, but I wanted to talk about Ben Norton, Aaron Mate's former colleague, his assessment of this burgeoning faction of the quote unquote left, people like Jackson Hinkle, Jimmy Dore, Max Blumenthal, people that are trafficking more and more so in right-wing talking points. So I was interested in Aaron's response to his former colleagues' commentary on that situation, because I happen to really agree with Ben Norton. And I think even people that, thought we did a bad job in that debate, I think even people that thought that will agree there is this split among the anti-imperialist left between people like Jackson Hinkle and Max Blumenthal, who increasingly pander to the right wing and traffic in transphobic talking points and cozy up to fascists like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson, and people that don't. I think that's a real dynamic that exists. I wanted to hear Aaron's perspective on it. Unfortunately, the conversation kind of got derailed because Jackson Hinkle got brought up and then it all went down the toilet. So I acknowledge that, perhaps from like a rhetorical perspective, I could have handled that better. But I still don't think it was an unfair question to ask him. And, I don't know why he couldn't just answer the question either. People want to say I got triggered. He got triggered. He was like, why are you trying to debate Jackson Hinkle? I'm like, I'm not trying to debate Jackson Hinkle through you. I want to know your opinion on this burgeoning faction of, so-called leftists that actually do coddle and pander to the right wing. And yes, it's okay to give Marjorie Taylor Greene credit for being right about Julian Assange, but people like Jackson Hinkle go way beyond that. They actually praise her for being an anti-establishment politician who's trying to fight the deep state and act like she's something that she's not. And I do have a problem with that. I don't think that we should be allowing or enabling literal fascists in our movement. I don't think we should be working with literal fucking fascists and fascist sympathizers. So, that's just me. That's how I feel about it. I tried to express that. I understand that it probably didn't come off the best to a lot of people. So, I'm not perfect. Sorry that every debate performance isn't like a 10 out of 10, whatever, but that is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be too hard on yourself. And no offense to you, Salgado, but it really just comes across like the people who need Jimmy Dore to frame everything before they can have a fucking opinion about it. It's so fucking obvious. Look, what happened with that Aaron thing was he knew he was getting his ass destroyed in that debate by having the simp for a fucking war criminal that had absolutely nothing to contribute to the show except being a broken clock that Aaron could put up and have spout the opinion that Aaron wanted to, and he knew we were clobbering him for that. So what happened was Aaron, excuse me, Gavin pivoted to a new question where he was asking Aaron, and this, you guys can play the fucking clip. I've watched it back. He goes on and Gavin wants to ask him about this new like left-right populist thing going on, and Aaron gets all fucking uppity because he knows exactly what he's talking about, the people that he constantly indulges at all times to pay his bills, and he gets all pissed off and he's like, well, what do you even mean? And Gavin's like, you know what I mean, the guys like Jimmy Dore and Jackson Hinkle who constantly make this kind of content. This would have been a absolute non-issue in any other framing. Like, let's imagine for a second, right, that it's just like that we're having Ron Placone on to react to something that like Crystal Ball said, right? And like, oh, do you fucking agree with this? And then Ron loses him. You should have Crystal here, goddamn. It's like, no, dude, we just fucking ask for your opinion about this random thing because we use these big names in our fucking thing as framing for good conversation, right? We've done it a million times, and he loses his fucking mind because he can't stand the fact that he's fucking associated with the guy that's gonna tweet shit like, you're a femcel if you're a woman and you don't like Andrew Tate, or like Putin is based. Ask me why. It's because it's fucking embarrassing for him, and I can't imagine what it feels like to have to fucking defend that shit. So no fucking shit he got angry. Okay. Yeah, women who don't like Andrew Tate are just femcels. Putin is the top G right now. You have to be dumb as rocks. Do you guys think I'm ever gonna fucking bend an inch with this bullshit? Of course not, dude. This guy's a fucking clown. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. 5 days into the carnivore diet. Are you fucking kidding me? This guy wants to be the liver king. Okay, it's fucking stupid. So no, I don't care about that guy. I don't want to debate that guy. I want to know what, if you think that this is a problem, that this is where the fucking left is going through. A year ago, this guy was making a video that said, rest in power, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And now he's saying Putin is based. And you don't think that's indicative of any fucking change? This is your fucking guy because one time he plagiarized your fucking article in a debate with Vosh to fucking argue that Syria is something he knows absolutely nothing about. You just like him because he parroted your exact fucking point, issue by issue by issue. Okay, so don't ask us about the Aaron Mate interview, guys. This is low-hanging fruit. Unsubscribe if you want to fucking be a gray zone stan. I don't fucking care. I'm not tailoring this content for you. I'm never going to. It's fucking obnoxious. And if you have 10 brain cells, you can see what's going on with the Jackson Hinkle crowd. You can call everybody soy boys and get jacked eating raw liver somewhere else. It's not going to be the fucking Vanguard chat room.
Yeah, thank you. That was well said, Zach. And one last question on the subject matter. People have suggested you were more harsh with Aaron than you were with Vosh. I got pretty fucking intense at Vosh too. I don't know if you guys remember. Go back and rewatch that debate, but I was interrupting him. I was fucking raising my voice quite a bit. If anything, the only reason why I wasn't even trying to be rude to Aaron. I know people, said it came off like that. To be honest, I was just passionate. Like, I was passionately involved in the conversation. I wasn't trying to be a dick, and I apologize if it came off that way. Actually, I don't apologize, but you know what I'm saying? If it came off that way, that's not how I intended it. I was just very passionate. I had 2 cups of coffee before the interview. It was kind of hot in here. I was getting pissed off. It's nothing personal though. Like, have you guys never seen a debate on YouTube? Like, have you only ever attend like fucking university lectures? Like, what the fuck is this? Like, go watch any other debate and you'll realize that I was actually not being that crazy. Like, I was passionately expressing my opinion with someone. Could I have come off a little bit better? Sure. But no, I don't think I was that much more harsh with Aaron. And at the end of the day, if I was, it's probably just because I had that second cup of coffee and I was fucking sweating in here because it's hot.
Also, the other thing about Vosh is Vosh was extremely passive that day. So, when I would do things like shush him, he would have fucking come over the top and somebody it was just, we got like random flu. Vosh wasn't feeling that like fucking spicy that day. And the last thing I want to say about this, because this has been burned in my mind for a really long time and I have to fucking get it out to our audience. This literal same people that gave us oceans and oceans and oceans of comments defending Aaron Mate, saying why would he derail his entire conversation that was about something else, were the same exact people who for months and months, when we were having an actual heated discussion with Ryan Grimm about the infrastructure bill, right? Not only did the audience, which is their right, to fucking get in and demand that we just completely reframe the conversation, Jimmy Dore himself not only starts sending us Twitter DMs live while we're doing our fucking show, calling us fucking cowards and saying that we won't push back on Ryan Grimm over Syria, something that is far as fuck from what we were talking about, not even remotely related, like what we called out Aaron for. Not even remotely related. We were talking about U.S. domestic infrastructure policy, and he wants us to fucking get into a 2-year-old argument about what happened in Syria for no fucking reason. All of the people, all of you who just wait for Jimmy Dore to tell you what your opinion is. You just flipped like a fucking switch and gave yourself away. Why would Aaron fucking change the conversation? I like Aaron and Jimmy. That's my response. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I hate Ryan Grimm. I want you to fucking argue with him about this shit. Do you understand how fucking terrible that? Ryan Grimm isn't responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Iraqis. Okay? He wasn't. He's not proudly talking that it was touting on his fucking contract military website consulting firm that his strategy was the one that was used to secure this mission in Iraq. No, he's just a fucking DC bureau chief that wants people to have healthcare and free college. Okay, so get your fucking warped minds together and stop fucking asking us about this shit.
Yeah, moving on. That's the last word on the subject. And again, with all that said, no hard feelings against Aaron. It's nothing personal. We're all just, commentators, journalists, whatever. Obviously, he's a journalist. I'm a commentator. I know. But yeah.
He also pretended that he doesn't react to fucking commentary. I was like, bro, you were on Useful Idiots. I don't react to other people's content. You just did for 3 hours, and it was the most viewed content you'll make all week.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it gets a little spicy. That's just the way it goes. This is fucking YouTube debate lord shit. Like, what do you want? Again, go fucking watch Cornell West lecture at a university if you need civility and politeness. Like, give me a fucking break. Thank you, Lloyd, though. Really appreciate you, Lloyd. Who will be the next progressive leader, aka Bernie 2016? Is there one? I mean, it might be Bernie himself. Might be Bernie himself. He didn't rule out running again if Biden does not. So in the event of an open primary, I do think there's at least a possibility that Bernie himself takes another run at it. I would say like a 50% possibility in the event that Biden is not running. But in his absence, I don't know. There's really not a good answer to that, Lloyd. There really isn't. And that's one of the unfortunate things about Bernie 2020 is that he didn't really leave a clear inheritor for his movement, a clear heir to the movement. And unfortunately, a lot of people that could have been the heir to the movement proved to be pretty disappointing. People like AOC, for example. So, I don't know. We'll have to see. Hopefully, someone can kind of come out of the woodwork and we're not expecting them to run, but they do, and they really take the country by storm. Someone inspiring, someone that could really speak to the working class, someone, like John Fetterman, who's not afraid to be aggressive and really tear the throats off his opponent. That's what I love about that guy. So we'll have to see what happens. Not saying that John Fetterman is perfect, and obviously I really disagree with his perspective on Israel. We've talked about that extensively, but I would like to see someone with that ability to go full attack dog. Someone with the policies of Bernie Sanders and who has that aggressiveness in him. So or her. So that's what I would like to see.
Yeah, I think that the only real pathway I see for victory is if Fetterman, I think he's going to win the race against Dr. Oz for sure, handedly. And then he gets in the public eye, and then him and Bernie decide to kind of tag team this one and say, hey, I know you're older, I'm younger. I know you have a lot of clout, and I know you have a lot of followers that will get behind you. So you'll lead the ship, and I'll be here to say, hey, guys, I'm going to be the thunder. Bernie will be the lightning. And I'm gonna steer the ship from behind and be the the bronze. You know what I'm saying? Bernie can be the brains for a while, and then the pass the baton over. That's what I think we would need, and I think people would be really inspired and comforted by that. And obviously, people can say that, oh, why would we bark up that tree again? I would love to hear a different solution that has an actual fucking even 1% chance of succeeding.
Yeah, and I do think that's a smart move. If Bernie does run again, which I'm not saying is going to happen, but if he were to do that, he should announce his running mate early so people know it's Bernie plus this other emerging left leader. Because obviously Bernie's damn near a fucking corpse. Although I still think he has a lot more energy than Joe Biden. So anyway, we'll have to see. Lloyd, thank you for the question. Always love talking about some good horse race politics. So thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And thank you also, Addie the Bugcatcher, some much needed positivity. Thank you very much, Addie. I actually think that the Aaron Mate interview was great. It didn't start off smooth, but the latter part was worth the watch. That's interesting because in my estimation, the first part went a lot better than the second part. We almost just should have fucking stopped after the first part. but anyway, I really appreciate it. And again, I have no problem with people saying that I was wrong. Like I really have no problem with those kind of criticisms. Like if you want to say I disagree with you, Gavin, this was a weak point or whatever, that's fine. Like I have no problem with people disagreeing. What I don't like is the fucking tone policing and the pearl clutching. Especially if you're a fucking Jimmy Dore fan. Like save me the bullshit. But yeah, no problem with people disagreeing with me. Like I said, even I admit I could have crafted some of my arguments better. It's easier said than done when you're on the spot. But yeah, no problem with people that disagree with my position on those matters. It's just, again, the tone policing and pearl clutching is always what pisses me off. No matter who it's directed towards, that shit's I've always found that shit annoying. But thank you, Addy. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, shout out to you, Addy. I also kind of had the opposite reaction where I was like, well, we started off really smoothly. We were making a lot. But anyway, hey, I'm glad you liked the second part. That was great. So, shout out to you. Do we have no Theo donor money if Zion don't? Oh, yeah, I think that was in response to why don't people support Palestinians? You get no Zionist donor money. I think that's what you're saying, like APEC money. I think that's the point that you're making. I would agree with that.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, APEC is a very intense political lobby. They have so much power, more than you realize, as far as funding goes, and they fund a lot of vicious attack ads against people, and call everyone that disagrees with them an anti-Semite. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, Marvin. Really appreciate that. And do we have any more super chats?
I think there's one more from Addy the Bug Catcher.
Hey, coming through once again, Addy. Really appreciate it. Not having the next progressive leader is exactly why progressives in solid blue and red states need to vote green. Totally agreed, Addy. 100% agree. That's been my strategy. Since Zach and I live in Missouri and vote in Missouri, it doesn't really fucking matter who we vote for at the presidential level. Whether or not we vote for a fucking Democrat or Republican, the state's going to go red. Because of the electoral college, your vote basically does not matter if you live in a solid red or a solid blue state. So my approach to that has been, then I'm going to vote green. If it doesn't matter, who my vote is cast for, then might as well vote my conscience, right? And if I agree a lot more with Jill Stein or Howie Hawkins' platform than Joe Biden or Donald Trump's, I'll still cast that vote, even though there's not a chance in hell that person is going to win. Like when I voted for Howie Hawkins, when I voted for Jill Stein, I was under no illusion. I obviously understood that those people were going to lose. I didn't think that, maybe if I vote for Jill Stein, she'll actually win. Like, no, that's not why I did it. It was more of a statement, more of a protest vote. And again, it makes it a lot easier to do that when it doesn't really matter who you vote for anyway, because like I said, in Missouri, the state's going to go red. It does not matter who I vote for. So might as well at least, try to get the Green Party to 5%. That's been my logic.
Oh, yeah. And same thing goes when it comes to, Senate elections or local elections. Like, for example, if we lived in North Carolina, I would be stoked to vote for Matthew Ho for the Green Party nomination because he's going to be way more aligned. And also just to get more eyes on the Green Party, right? Bigger numbers, bigger turnout for the Green Party. That's something that the local media has to cover. That means more eyes will get on the Green Party, right? That's why we were talking about the Streisand effect of them trying to keep them off the ballot to begin with. Now people know, oh my gosh, they tried to keep them off the ballot and failed. That means they're on the ballot. I can vote for somebody else, those kinds of things. So yeah, nothing but love for the Green Party over here at the Vanguard, even though, sometimes we find ourselves being in the position of thinking it's a little bit of a better strategy to vote for somebody within the party framework if there's not a viable alternative in the Green Party. Always love the Green Party and always support them at every opportunity.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Nasser, for the $9.99. Really appreciate that generous donation, Nasser. I agree with your criticism of Hinkle and by extension, Aaron. I think Aaron knows Hinkle is cringe, but he knows he can't crap on too many people or he'll be on an island by himself. Respect to you guys not cucking. 100%, man. That is exactly the reality of the situation. And if it was like, if Aaron never, publicly criticized anyone else, then maybe that would be fine. But my problem is that he has publicly criticized other people on the left, people like Amy Goodman, for example. And then you're going to be quiet about you're going to be quiet about Jackson. You're going to be quiet about Jimmy when they do obviously fucked up shit way worse than whatever your beef was with people like Amy Goodman. So that's my issue. And I think you're totally correct that he knows that if he speaks out against these obvious issues within the faction of people that he associates with, that he knows he'll be like excommunicated because these guys are fucking vicious. Same with Jimmy Dore. If you push back too much on him like we did, he'll fucking excommunicate you. So yeah, he's definitely afraid of that.
Oh yeah, YouTube's all about kissing rings, right? That's why you notice that everybody's comment section follows around like the same 5 shows. It doesn't matter who you're watching. Like we've pointed out a million times, you're either going to watch like Vosh, Dylan Burns, like that kind of shit, or you're going to watch like Jimmy, Revolutionary Blackout Network, Savvy Sabs. You're not going to fucking cross pollinate because they just condition you to like fucking hate each other so that you stay in that little like fucking wormhole. And then if you do what Gavin and I do, and you just try and fairly criticize fucking everybody, then you do end up on an island, right? Sometimes there are cool people who like they don't give a fuck. Like I've criticized Kyle before. I will continue to criticize Kyle when I disagree with him. And he's pretty charitable about it, pretty chill about it. For the most part, guys like Glenn come on here when we disagree with them. But other times, people just can't fucking handle criticism. Like I don't give a fuck if people put out a video criticizing us. That's 100% everybody's right. You can say whatever the hell you want. Vosh called us like fucking tanky, fucking crazy, fucking people, whatever. And then we went on. We had a lovely chat with the guy. I don't fucking care. We're here to reach your audience, not become buddies. Anyway, yeah, we're never gonna cock, and that's why we are on our own island, and that's why it fucking continuously blows people's minds. So we'll just fucking make a anti-TYT take, fucking anti-Vosh take, anti-fucking Jimmy Dore take, all in one. It's like, yes, we don't have any fucking gods here. We have nobody that's nobody's our manager. We say whatever the fuck we want to, and that triggers people.
Yeah, and by the way, no, I'm not saying that you can't criticize Amy Goodman. I have criticism of Amy Goodman. I'm saying if you're gonna criticize people like Amy Goodman, but then you have nothing to say about all these literal fucking fascist sympathizers that you're fucking hanging out with, that's my issue. It's like, okay, so clearly you're just not criticizing these people because they're your friends, and you're criticizing these other people because they aren't your friends. Like that's where I find it kind of annoying. Again, like we have friends of the show, we'll criticize them. Like people like, I consider like Kyle Klinsky a friend of the show. Do you not think we fucking criticized him a million times on this channel? We've put out vicious videos about him, disagreeing with him. So that's my beef. I just hate when people play for a fucking team. So, just to clarify. But thank you so much. Also, once again, Addy, really appreciate the super chats today, Addy. Here's something I don't think we've discussed yet on this channel. Quick thoughts on veganism, specifically the impact on the environment. Yeah, we've actually had not a lot, but a couple good conversations about veganism and vegetarianism and stuff. I am a vegetarian, so I don't eat meat, but I do eat like dairy and eggs and stuff like that. I fucking love cheese, unfortunately, so it's gonna be tough to give that up. I did go vegan for a while, for like 6 months, about a year or two ago. Again, I only made it like 6 months, but I have so much respect for people that do commit to a vegan diet. I think it's definitely the morally correct option. Given the just absolute barbarism, the for-profit torture and slaughter of animals that goes on at industrial levels, fucking literally trillions of animals being tortured and slaughtered every year, sentient beings. Again, pigs have the same like emotional intelligence and intellectual intelligence as a 3-year-old child. So like imagine if there was a literal like holocaust of 3-year-old children happening every year and people were just like eating them for breakfast. Like it's basically the same thing. I'm just saying. That being said, I don't judge people that eat meat. I don't judge people that aren't also vegetarians, because again, it is just part of the fucking way of life for so many people. And obviously, even as someone that doesn't eat meat, you could criticize me for where the shirt was probably fucking sewn in like, some sweatshop by fucking slaves, essentially, or at least people being paid like massively exploitative wages. So no one's perfect. And again, I'm a vegetarian, so vegans could criticize me for eating milk and participating in that. So I don't, I don't pretend to be above anyone for my dietary decisions. I think, I don't judge anyone for that kind of stuff. But I do have massive amounts of respect for vegans, and I think they're 100% right.
Yeah, I think that the concept of veganism is something that could definitely be discussed. But I think if you're going to talk about things like implementation and the environmental impact of it, you have to come at it from like a different way. It cannot be like an individual decision. It has to be a almost like a global restructuring, right? Because here's a couple of quick things that come to my mind when we talk about veganism, right? In America, I think it totally makes sense to start demanding that we ease back our meat intake, right? That we demand legislatively that we are going to change the policies that allow for industrial animals. Yeah, animal farming. Yeah, 100. Well, just with live animals though, right? Like not necessarily when it comes to like industrial farming of like fucking soybeans or whatever, right? But like I think from an environmental standpoint in America that makes sense. However, if you look at parts of the developing world, the parts of the world that we as Americans and Westerners broadly have systematically underdeveloped, it's only now that they're even attaining a level of meat that can consistently be a part of their diet, and even a lot of times they're eating meat that we would not consider to be good for you, like bat meat. We've had all these conversations during COVID and the wet markets and all these different kinds of things. So it will be interesting how this gets implemented, right? And I think it leads into a lot of conversations, because obviously, yes, I think that we should alleviate the animal suffering and animal byproducts and all of those kinds of things. I think in abstract that makes sense, but it does come across a little bit uniquely for all of us, really, largely wealthy countries, to then go turn around and try and like preach to other developing countries, right? And it would have to be like a worldwide effort in order to like reduce our emissions to the degree that we would need to have a habitable planet. So there's a lot of nuance that needs to go on here. But by and large, Addy, I completely agree with you, right? I just think that, I wanted to throw that caveat in there because I think that people they don't necessarily like understand that a lot of the world, like, they're going to starve if they don't have access to like at least like some meat right now. And it's just newly becoming a part of their diet. So I was trying to think about that. That's why I would say that, we should in America focus on changing our own fucking like, industrial slaughter before we go to a country like, fucking Brazil, which is doing untold damage to the fucking environment right now and the fucking climate. It's just we're not really in a position to come down there and like a high horse and be like, hey, stop all of this fucking cattle farming and tearing down the Amazon for cattle, because that's exactly what's happening. It's cattle business that's killing the Amazon right now for the most part, and that's because more of the global south is able to buy meat, and these are all really complicated questions that we should look into, and I would love to have an expert on to talk about. But if it's just like a simple ethical question, like should we stop relying on animals for meat and byproducts and start focusing on the reharvestable elements of the earth, I think that's a no-brainer. It's just a little bit more complicated when you start thinking of it as like a global political issue than like a personal choice thing.
Yeah, totally. And again, and when it comes to people eating meat, like I don't really have much of an issue with it. Like if you're going and hunting a deer or something, or like if you raise chickens and, after a while you kill them and eat them, like I don't really think there's anything wrong with that. Like obviously people have been doing that for all of fucking human history. What I have a problem with is the industrialization and the for-profit nature of factory farming and industrial slaughter of animals. Because at that point you have no respect for these animals' sentience. You have no respect for them as living, breathing beings that feel emotion and get scared and have all of the same emotions that your dog has. All of that's thrown out the window because all it's about is profit. So if they need cull 400,000 hogs to make a profit because they have too many, then they'll do that. Like it doesn't matter. It's all just numbers and it's all just money. And that's the problem. And that is truly evil, in my opinion. It's one of the reasons why I'm an anti-capitalist, because it takes all the humanity out of things. It takes all of that out of the equation and just reduces it to profit. It just reduces it to the bottom line. And I think that's just catastrophic on an ethical level when you're talking about living beings, sentient beings. And again, animals have a lot more emotional intelligence and intellectual intelligence than you probably realize. As I said, pigs have the same emotional intelligence as a 3-year-old child. I don't think anyone would find it acceptable to be slaughtering 3-year-old children in mass to make bacon out of them. Like everyone would think that's fucked up, but because they're pigs and not humans, it's just okay. So I totally think that vegans are correct on that stuff. I would say I don't think we should shame people out of eating meat entirely. I think we should take on the factory farming industry because again, if you're raising chickens or if you're hunting a deer, like no, that's actually better than going to the grocery store and getting food there, because there's obviously exploitation involved in just about all aspects of the food industry. So if you're farming your own food or hunting your own food, that's actually probably the best way to go about it. My issue is with the industrial slaughter, torture, and profiting off of these animals. That's what I take real issue with. But thank you so much, Addy.
Just to push back on that, though, I just feel like not everybody, with the scale of the fucking billions of people that we have on this planet, right? Like it's just not going to be feasible for people to all go out and decide that they're all going to be hunters. So if we undo the factory farming, I think we'll have to fucking probably recognize with the fact that we won't just be able to send everybody out into the field.
Well, it's like saying if clothes are made ethically, then people won't have enough clothes to wear. Like I still think we should tackle an inhumane and unethical industry.
That's not true at all. There is physically a finite number of animals on this fucking planet, and we have more people than we like. I'm just saying, in the wild, in a place like America, right? If we stopped industrial farming, we'd probably be okay, right? Because we'd have other ways for people to get in, food to eat, right? But there would be other parts of the fucking globe that rely on basically the like fucking leftovers of the United States, and those people would not be able. So we just have to come up with solutions for that. I don't think it's all just so black and white. I think that the people will actually end up starving because if we just without any kind of recourse just snapped our fingers. And obviously that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be taking on factory farming. Of course we should. I think that's the best political messaging possible. Is kind of like how we've talked about, like we want to abolish prisons, right? If you want to abolish the meat eating in a factory sense, you know what I mean? You have to start somewhere and say, let's end factory farming. Let's not say like let's ban meat eating. Like that would be really unpopular. No, I know. That's why I'm agreeing with you on that front. I just want us to think about what impacts that will have for the economies that basically run and exist in the 100% in the shadow of the United States economy, and how their resources will be dramatically impacted if we do that, and how we'd have to figure out a way structurally that doesn't only care for the United States, but also the machine that we've built globally that provides us with the meat and resources that we need, because that will have tremendously damaging effects on the people that,
all I was saying is we should take on the factory farming industry. That might be true, but I still think we should take on unethical, capitalist machines that slaughter literally trillions of sentient beings a year for the, sake of their own profit. Like, there's lots of countries like India, for example, where lots of poor people live perfectly fine as vegetarians. Like, I don't think that having access to fucking Oscar Mayer wieners would necessarily improve those people's life all that much.
Okay, so that's absolutely not what I'm saying. I'm telling you that you don't have to have access to Oscar Mayer wieners. If you snap your fingers and eliminate factory farming in this country, people will fucking starve.
Well, there's no one's going to snap their fingers and eliminate factory farming overnight. Like, obviously that's not what's going to happen.
That's what, yes, and that's what I'm saying. So as we, it's just in the same way that, like, when we talk about, like, Bernie Sanders, when he talks about how we need to get off dirty energy, right? What's the fundamental primary focus of his position? It is we are going to provide union jobs for clean energy, right? Because what will happen is you will have what you talk about, like abandoned getting off petrol, right? And you have all these union guys. This is happening in Kansas City right now. We just talked about it the other day. You have all these guys saying, hey, if you go with green energy, they're going to just hire scabs and there's not going to be like union gas guys here, right? So that creates a friction between people who want what we want, right, which is to get off of dirty energy, and people who want, unionized jobs, right? So obviously the solution is that you have to mandate that it will be union jobs for the green energy. But oftentimes what happens is they'll just say, oh, we have this clean energy bill, and then it gets pushed through, and that actually ends up fucking all those union workers. And it's actually like a serious issue that you have to balance. You know what I'm saying? So all I'm saying is that when you're talking about these global food supply chain issues, when you make changes to them, you also have to come up with a solution to go along with them, so that people don't end up starving in Mexico and, fucking Costa Rica.
Well, I also think that we shouldn't be allowing like slaves to pick tomatoes in Hispanic or like Latin American countries for like, massive food corporation. That also happens. And you could say, well, if we got rid of that overnight, then think about all the people that would starve. I'm like, okay, well, I still think we should get rid of these exploitative slave-like practices when it comes to farming in general, not just animals. So I think you could make that same argument for just about taking on almost any unethical industry when it comes to food. Obviously, the way we produce food worldwide is incredibly fucked up, and I'm in favor of changing all of that for the better. But I don't think that should stop us from pushing back on and advocating against factory farming, which I do consider to be one of the great moral atrocities of our time.
Oh, I agree with you. I just worry that we'll get into this framing where it's like, if you have like in the same way where, dude, this happens all the time with the issue that I just presented to you with the gas line and the unclean energy. People who are more liberal and affluent, they scoff at these union workers who are worried that their fucking lifeline, their job is going to be disappeared, right? That's why people fucking still want to be mining coal, right? Because it's their lifeline. It's their thing. So if you don't provide an alternative for those people, that's all I'm saying. Of course we need to do this, but all I was saying was that it's really critical for us to provide an alternative so that we don't lose the people who are going to be most impacted and most benefited by this, right? Because they're like worried about their initial fucking like well-being and they're like,
yeah, I still think that the being honest about something is more important than framing, just like how I'm in favor of abolishing prisons, despite the fact how that might come. We just had a whole conversation about how sometimes like you just need to be honest about the reality of a situation rather than try to make sure it's framed 100% perfectly for everyone that might not already be on board. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. But we also did spend a lot of time qualifying and talking about all of the other things that need to happen. That's all I was doing here. I was saying that there is a lot of qualifying that needs to go because it's a very complicated issue.
Sure, but I'm just saying I will happily wear a shirt that says abolish factory farms. Sure. Like, I have no problem with that messaging. I think that's 100% the moral position, the position we should be pursuing. And yeah, obviously there should be a proper transition. We can't just leave people to starve. I totally agree with that too. But I just don't think anyone's saying that should happen.
No, I don't think anybody, especially not in our fucking chat. No, I just wanted to raise the point that if we do go down this road, we will see pushback like that. Here's how you address it. Just like how when guys that fucking, get fucking fracking out of the ground, like those guys need jobs. So you got to say, yeah, dude, we want you to work on fucking, wind propellers and all that kind of shit. And we'll fucking go to college for free and learn how to fucking apply the skills you already have, all these kinds of things. Obviously, it kind of goes without saying, but I just wanted to like pad that because I know that, it's something that sticks out in the back of my mind.
Oh, well, I mean, animal rights activists get a lot of pushback no matter what. Like that's the everyone wants to, shit all over you if you're trying to say animal, like maybe we shouldn't torture and slaughter animals for money. Like people, you're fucking crazy. Everyone's like, even like my own family members, people have been eating meat since the beginning of time, since the cavemen. I'm like, yeah, I know. We weren't fucking industrially farming and profiting off of it though. We were fucking hunting fucking mammoths and shit. We weren't, slaughtering trillions of animals for profit in filthy, inhumane conditions. But yeah, it's an interesting discussion. And I saw someone saying we should have on Glenn Greenwald to talk about this. We actually have talked about this exact issue with Glenn Greenwald. Obviously, these days we don't agree with Glenn on everything, probably increasingly less and less things, but that is one area where I think he's really good on. And we have made sure to ask him about that and have those conversations with him because I do think he's a really authoritative voice on the subject matter.
Oh yeah, 100%. And also, shout out to Glenn. I know he's going through some really intense personal shit right now. So I don't know if shout out's the right word, but like our thoughts are with his fucking family because that shit's really brutal from what I understand.
Yeah, I know his husband's in the hospital. I'm not sure if his husband's out of the hospital yet. I hope he's doing okay.
No, he's still in the ICU from what I read this morning.
Damn. Yeah. Well, obviously our thoughts are with Glenn's family. That's really sad. Hopefully his husband is totally okay. And he's done a lot of good work in general as far as animal rights go. And he has like a sanctuary for dogs. So that's really cool. But yeah, thank you also Carolina Boy for the 199. Any chance Biden takes pot off Schedule 1 soon? I'd say there's like a 20% chance. Oops. Let me go back. Yeah, I would say there's like a 20% chance. But don't get your hopes up. Do not get your hopes up. If he was smart, he would absolutely do it. If the Democrats wanted to, claim an issue that is popular with Democrats, independents, and Republicans, then they absolutely should do it. There's no reason not to. So I hope that they do it. I think that it would secure Democratic victories in the midterm if they did do it, especially right before voting starts. But I wouldn't get my hopes up.
Nah, dude, that guy's a drug warrior through and through. I think that if we got a new Democrat, almost any one of them would have done it for the points. Like even, I mean, I think if we would have gotten even Pete Buttigieg or somebody like really milquetoast, they would have done it for the cheap points. You sign it, executive order. Everybody would have talked about how base they were for canceling like less fucking student loans than they promised and like getting pot off and basically doing the bare fucking minimum of Democrats. Everybody being like, wow, they actually did something that was good. Democrats never do fucking anything. But with Biden, he's a drug warrior, and I think he really fucking believes it. I think he really, really believes that something like pot will create the problems that he has to fucking deal with his son Hunter. And I think that I just don't think he'll do it. I think that you could convince somebody like Kamala for Machiavellian reasons to do it, just because I don't think she has that conviction. I think an 80-year-old man who grew up with all of the fucking drug warrior shit, it's just hard to reach somebody that's already 80 years old on something that they deeply believe, right? It's almost impossible, especially when they're president.
Yeah, and honestly, he probably does buy into the whole like gateway drug thing. He even said that on the debate stage. I remember like Cory Booker pushed back on him for saying the line about cannabis being a gateway drug, but he probably genuinely believes that, given what his son has been up to with all of his drug addictions. He's probably like, if we legalize weed, then everyone is going to become Hunter Biden. But yeah, thank you so much, Carolina Boy. Like I said, hopefully it happens. Not getting my hopes up. However, always appreciate hearing from you though, Carolina Boy. Thank you so much. And I think we can probably get on to the next patron question before we get back for some super chats. So keep them coming, guys. We'll be right back to the super chats. Just wanted to answer this next patron question, and it is a pretty long one. So sit tight. Hey, guys, thanks for your answer. Thanks for the answer you guys gave me back in June. It was really informative in how I now view leftist commentators and their intentions for turning words into organization. I understand both of your perspective that your roles as commentators are the lane that you feel comfortable in as opposed to activists. And as someone with pretty bad social anxiety, I can relate to that. Yeah, there you go. But my question is, if it's not a lefty commentator pushing for something and not a politician because they push for nothing and not a celebrity because they are rich and comfortable, who will be the people with a platform to give attention to these movements? My belief is at this point, my belief is at this point, the only productive path forward getting left policies done is through anyone with a significant enough platform and a strong sense of leadership and confidence, organizing a movement to where these important issues are forced into mainstream conversation. Just one fringe example. Let's say someone like Crystal Ball, who believes in Medicare for all, she agreed with Force the Vote, knows her shit, and has at least partial access to insiders in Washington. So she knows she can, at least on the back end, influence politicians. But what if she had done or does organize single issue protests and have the BP producers film some heart wrenching videos about the effects of a capitalist healthcare system in the same way that clips were played over and over of George Floyd death, killings in Ukraine, or anti smoking ads as they advertise these protests? We all know what triggers an emotional response to the masses and encourages regular people to organize. Sure, that may not be her role, but who even is there with a platform who call themselves activists who are making any moves? And also, the only reason I believe most of these grassroots activist groups are dead in the water is solely because there aren't people with large enough platforms to keep these organizations relevant to the national conversation. Thanks again, guys. Also looking to the van content. Yeah, I think, Scott, we probably agree on a lot there. I think the question you were asking was like, why don't you and Zach, personally go start the revolution? Like, why aren't you guys constantly organizing protests yourself? And my response was just that, like, we don't really have that skill set necessarily. Like, we're better at just talking shit. We'll leave the activism to activists. But I don't think that either of us would like have an issue or like disagree with the strategy of someone like Crystal Ball, as you say, going up and setting up a protest or organizing a single issue kind of demonstration and filming it. Like, I think that would be great. I'm not opposed to it at all. I think that would be a wonderful use of Crystal's time, or anyone else on the left who is a commentator with a large platform. If Zach and I did have a bigger platform, we probably would do some stuff like that if we had more funding too. So again, I don't think anyone's opposed to that. I think that leftist commentators are an important part of the kind of revolutionary sentiment. So I definitely, that's why we call ourselves a vanguard, right? But that being said, I think our only point was just that might not be the specific skill set that Zach and I feel most suited for. Again, we're better at shit talking. I'm not the most social person ever. I'm not necessarily the best at organizing the disaffected masses of the proletariat into action. I'm better at just kind of giving my opinion. But at the same time, if anyone who is in a part of the commentariat decided to take on that role, I would be the first to cheer them on and be like, hell yeah, bro, that's dope as fuck.
Yeah, I think that there's just a bit of a misconception here with the amount of power that a show like the Vanguard has. And Gavin and I try and be really fucking honest about that, guys. Like, it's so, like, there's a real industry in telling everybody that watching your show is activism. That's what TYT did, like, oh, support us now and stick it to the media and like all this kind of stuff. Okay. But the idea that like the media, fine, but the activism stuff, like watching somebody on the internet is not activism, right? What we do is we try and make an entertaining show so that people will watch it and then engage with and discuss these ideas, which I believe serves, somewhat of a larger purpose of, making these ideas accessible to people on the internet and, trying to play some sort of a role and teaching that way and learning that way through other people, but also providing an escape from the fact that a lot of people just live in a world where they don't get to have these kinds of conversations on the day-to-day. They're not living near their neighbors, and if they did, they don't care about this shit. So what we're trying to do here is facilitate a community. And if our community got fucking huge, like the size of a community that like Hassan Piker has, or something ginormous, which don't hold your breath, I don't think will ever happen. It will probably never happen. But even if we had half of that, that would be one thing. It would be a ginormous amount of income that we could do to say, okay, we're going to set up buses in LA, Chicago, Denver, Baton Rouge, wherever, and they're all going to fucking run to Washington, D.C. and get on it for free. Tell them you're here to come, and we'll protest outside of fucking D.C. for a few days. And I was thinking about this when I was driving to my car this morning, right, drinking my coffee, and about how I would love for the Vanguard to go full yippee and just like have me and Gavin standing on top of a fucking bus with a crowd around us, and megaphones, saying we're not fucking going anywhere until you give us what we want. That is the dream, right? Obviously, that's the dream. Gavin and I know what the fuck this is about. If we get fucking in the wormhole and have an audience of people that's ginormous, of course, we're going to put the pedal to the metal. We're going to fucking go for it. But as it stands right now, we got 186 people in the whole wide world watching this stream right now. And if we brought 186 people outside Washington, they're not going to give a fuck Okay, and that's if we got every single person that's watching right now from all over. We got Daspos in Germany. We got people all over the fucking place, guys. So the thing is we're so spread out right now. We have to really, really, really grow. And obviously, Gavin and I are young guys. Who knows what'll be happening when we're 30, right? 35, when we're Kyle's age, when we have another 10 years on our show, and we've hopefully ridden another wave of progressive demand, and we have an audience of people that's big enough to make some splashes, right? You know, but as it stands, unfortunately, there's a limit to the power that Gavin and I have, and you know, that is what it is. You know, we can't just snap our fingers or even, you know, try and fucking, yeah, I don't know. We can't just make a whole bunch of people appear somewhere. We can't even make 1,000 people watch our show with any kind of regularity. You know what I mean? And we try our fucking damnedest. So it's not a lack of effort on our part to grow. But we're more prioritizing staying true to ourselves than numbers. So over time, if we accumulate a big community of people that are like, hey, we really want to fucking do this, of course, Gavin and I will put our money where our mouth is and let's get it done. But right now, we're still in the building stages of this show, right? We're still building the fucking cement blocks that are going to be the fortress of the Vanguard efforts for, you know, decades to come, we hope, right? But it's just not an overnight thing. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. And obviously, we're always happy to have on activists that are doing that kind of work. Like, you know, for example, Chris Smalls, who's been making the rounds on shows talking about a potential general strike come 2024. You know, I happily would platform that idea and advocate for it here, and anything else in similar vein. So yeah, definitely a great question. Thank you also, Sam K. Really appreciate the $10 and the positive comments. Love your conversation with Aaron. Substantive conversation that didn't dissolve into name calling. Well, you're one of the 5 people that thought that, Sam. So I appreciate you voicing that very unpopular opinion, but I'm glad that you enjoyed the conversation. I thought it was a substantive conversation too. So I'm glad you got some value in it. What's your take on Biden still not returning to the Iran deal? Obviously it's terrible that the Iran deal we haven't re-entered it yet. But that being said, I heard that there's some progress being made on that. Like I heard that they actually are going to re-enter seemingly.
Yeah, fuck, I'll believe it when I see it, right? That was one of the main. Everybody wants to give me hell and call me whatever. I don't fucking care. I did vote for Biden because I thought that he was going to do this very simple task. I was one of those people that when we were reflecting on the Obama administration, we were talking about not a lot being done. That was good, right? It wasn't. But the Iran deal was one of the good things he did. He did almost nothing that was considered positive from a foreign policy standpoint during his fucking 8 years in Washington. Almost nothing. He fucked up so much shit, which is, I mean, you know, a continuation of the fucking, you know, business as usual. But the one thing he did was he was like, hey, let's only deal with a couple of nuclear armed superpowers that we're not like fucking. Let's go ahead and let's just talk and see if some diplomacy will work over in Iran, right? The reasonable guys over there for diplomacy. Let's get something etched out. And then Donald Trump said, "Fuck that. We're not keeping up our end of the deal." And then Iran stayed in the fucking deal because they were like, "Hey, come on, Biden's gonna let's hold on out." And then he fucking Trump so hard to fucking permanently destroy, but when Biden got in, he could have come in and he could have said, yeah, let's get back. Let's do it. He hasn't for a while. So I hope it happens, but I imagine it might be an even shittier version of the Iran deal, one that might be likely to fold again if a Republican takes office. So who fucking knows?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, though, Sam. Really appreciate that. And again, I'm really appreciate the kind words about the interview. Glad you found some value in that, like I said. Thank you also, Jane. Intense disagreement is good. Discourse increases understanding. You guys know me. I've always been on that page and I've always defended just about everyone up until a point. Like there is a line you can cross, obviously, but I have no problem with intense, aggressive discourse. I think it's one of the best things about this online leftist space. Because previous to YouTube and Twitch and all that stuff, a lot of the leftist discourse was very intellectual. You know, it was all stodgy and wasn't very accessible to your average person. But if you throw some, red meat to the fucking audience and make it a little bit more entertaining and a little bit more intense and aggressive, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I really don't. I really don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, I think there's something. I think I actually enjoy that content. It makes it more entertaining to watch. So, maybe that's not productive. Who knows? I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think this person was actually referencing to our little debate and discussion over the factory farming that we were hashing out was when this came up. So it's like, yeah, look, Gavin and I, we do this show fucking all the time. We always say we get excited when we have something to disagree about a little bit because it makes it more engaging for the audience, right? Like Gavin and I have a little bit of a disagreement. Let's like find some commonality and see if we can't find like a fucking, reasonable position to satisfy everybody. That's what discourse is supposed to be about. So yeah, 100%. Jane, thanks for the $5.
Also, speaking of the factory farming conversation, wanted to shout out Progressive Michigander. Not to be a market fixes everything fanatic, but I'm hoping that a microbial protein will provide an alternative bypassing the climate change and ethical implications of our hunger for meat. And I totally agree with that. I think that there is potentially a very optimistic future as far as what's it called? Fucking lab grown meat. I know that sounds like some Bill Gates shit or whatever, but it's true. Like if you can literally take an animal cell of a chicken and create chicken meat with it, and no animal has to be harmed in the process. So potentially, we're talking about solutions and transitions. If we could, move away from factory farming, which is not only incredibly cruel and inhumane, but it's also terrible for the environment. If we could transition to a system where people are still eating meat, they're still, having that hunger met, but it's with meat that's produced in a different way in a lab where animals don't have to suffer, be tortured, and there's basically no environmental impact. I don't see anything wrong with that. Do you agree, Zach? Would you happily eat lab grown meat if it was available, or are you grossed out by that?
No, I'm not grossed out about it, but I do have bad news for everybody. I actually read a lot about lab grown meat, and it like obviously in theory, 100% down with it. They can produce it. It's not just a theory. The scalability is the issue. I read a long piece about how the fact that it was one of the guys that was one of the initial scientists behind doing lab grown meat studies and building flesh from cells, basically, which is the studies that led to this back in the 80s. And one of the things that he wrote about extensively was it's not so much the ability to produce it that they've struggled with for the last 40 years. It's the ability to bring the cost down. And despite the immense amount of money that's being pushed into it by people like Bill Gates, they're still having three big problems in that scalability, cost, and then the ability to like preserve it and transport it. So it's one of those things that I think is a lot like when Andrew Yang was talking about automation, and people like Elon Musk, like 5 or 6 years ago, or honestly 10 years ago, we're saying 10 years from now, everybody's going to have an automated car on the road. All these kinds of things. They're really ambitious, and they're honestly, they require more and more funding. And when somebody like Bill Gates needs more and more funding, they'll put out a bunch of shit that's like, we're really close on this. And then people want to get in and invest their money in it. And it becomes more and more of a process. So 100% they want this to succeed. It's not like a scam or something. It's just that the fact of the matter is that from everything I've read, we haven't overcome those like thermodynamic issues of scalability. I hope we do, because it would be a massive victory and a huge W. And I'm not saying that we can't overcome that scientific hurdle, but I read a really long piece one time by one of the like main architects of the lab grown meat industry. And he's basically like come out and said, like, we're not much closer to making it scalable and for everybody else than we were in the 1980s when we realized we could do it. So just a PS.
That study funded by Tyson. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, that is an unfortunate reality too. Hopefully we can overcome those odds, because I do think that would be a great solution. Like I would eat a fucking chicken wing if it was just made in a lab somewhere, like, if it was totally sterile and there was no animals harmed. Yeah, I don't have any opposition to that. Like I'm not going to pretend that bacon doesn't taste good. Like, I'm not crazy. I would happily eat that shit. Again, my problem is the morality, the fucking ethics of torturing animals and sentient beings. But yeah, thank you so much, Progressive Michigander. That's a good point to bring up. And thank you so much, Brian Frederick. Why is the drug war conversation limited to marijuana? Why isn't the left making a broader push to end the drug war and abolish the DEA? I mean, you're preaching to the choir, man. We're both 100% in favor of legalizing, taxing, and regulating all drugs. And yeah, I'm 100% down with abolishing the DEA too. As far as why it's not a bigger push, like why more people don't talk about that, I think the reason why politicians don't talk about that is because they're terrified of being painted as crazy radicals that want to, you want 5-year-olds to be able to buy heroin at the store. Like, people always go with the lowest hanging fruit kind of straw mans when it comes to legalizing all drugs. But yeah, I think think that the left absolutely should, articulate the position behind legalizing, taxing, and regulating all drugs. I think that that's a great, issue to fight for. Hopefully it's one that more people fight for, because I think it's absolutely the correct position.
Yeah, polling is the main reason why. I mean, nobody talked about legalizing marijuana until it was above water in basically all 50 fucking states, and then Colorado and I think Washington were the two that did it at the same time. Maybe specifically Colorado, we all know, was the first one to do it and get it implemented, right? And then they were like, "Holy shit, this is popular!" And everybody's home value in the Denver area shot the fuck through the roof, and a bunch of tax dollar money was coming into fund the schools, and everybody was like, "Holy shit." Nobody's dying everywhere. There's not fucking hellfire raining from the skies. People are just lighting up and fucking spending more money at the local Conoco after dark. Like, this is not that much of an issue. And so that everybody was like, fuck yeah, let's legalize it. We want that money. We want our home value to go up. Let's do it. And then you saw states that really needed an income, like South Dakota, were like, oh, fuck, let's just do that here. And then it's beneficial to the state, because what the fuck is in South Dakota besides Mount Rushmore, right? Nothing. Yeah, 100%. And then it also looks like you followed up by saying that you found us on Useful Idiots. That's interesting. I would be curious to know how many people found us by watching the Useful Idiots, because if people don't know, back in the day, one of our first come-ups was we reacted to Useful Idiots being taken off the air, or not off the air, but rather just being booted from Rolling Stone, and we were speculating about why that had occurred. And then they reacted to us speculating about it. Yeah, and then that kind of created a little bit of a Useful Idiots Vanguardception thing that we wrote out for as long as we could to try and attract viewers like you, Brian.
Yeah, shout out to you, Brian. Thanks for watching, and that's super cool. Yeah, that was good times, good memories. That was like fucking a year and a half ago, seemingly. It's been so long, but yeah, that was a cool thing to happen back in the early stages of this channel.
Still recording out of our bedroom.
Yeah, I know, right? I can't believe they even like literally took us seriously at all, but that was cool as fuck. Anyway, thank you so much, Brian. Really appreciate that. And obviously shout out to Matt and Katie for platforming us in that way. That was really cool. But thank you also, Mariposa, for the $9.99. Really appreciate that, Mariposa. Are you guys still in your 20s? Yep, both 24. I'm in my mid 30s. I'm curious about your analytics in terms of age and gender, who's watching you, and how do you feel about it? Sorry if someone already asked. No, don't feel sorry about that at all. We get tons of questions, and actually no one has asked that, at least recently. So we appreciate it, Mariposa, and thank you for the donation. As far as our analytics go, actually the majority of our audience is in the key demographic of I think it's like 20 to 60 or something like that, 20 to 50 maybe. That's like what's considered the key demographic by the cable news and stuff.
Corporate.
Yeah, exactly. That's who they really care about. Not that we give a shit about that, but it is interesting. But that being said, we do have a pretty solid spectrum. We have a solid 10% of our audience that's over 55 or something like that, because YouTube does provide these sorts of analytics. So we have a lot of diversity when it comes to age. It's not just people that are also in their 20s that listen to the Vanguard, and I actually am really proud of that fact. I think it's cool that we have people, older folks, and also younger people that listen to us and think what we have to say is worth listening to. So that's really cool. As far as male to female, I think it's like 80% male to 20% female. And I wish it was more equal, but the sad reality is that on YouTube, it seems like that's something that almost every channel experiences. Like the vast majority of your audience is male. And I guess that's just because more men get their news from YouTube, which kind of makes sense. They'll just listen to any fucking random person online, tell them what's going on. Where I guess women are, more careful about who they listen to, or so. I don't know why it is. I'm just speculating. But it's not unique to us that the 80 to 20% thing. Like even channels like the Needle Drop, which is a music channel. Anthony Fantano, he reviews albums. Even he said that his demographics are like 80% male, 20% female. It's not like he's doing anything wrong. It's not like he's trying to tailor his content towards men more than women, just like how we're not trying to tailor our content towards men. But if you are a man and you are on YouTube, I guess it just is more likely that dudes are going to watch you. But that being said, we really appreciate you, Mariposa, for being one of the female listeners of the Vanguard. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, and the other thing about it is that if you notice, there's a lot of polls. It'll show like 48% of people in key demographic get their information or news from YouTube, whereas like 45% get their information from Instagram, and you'll see the exact inverse on Instagram. It's actually a lot more women that get their content on Instagram for whatever reason, right? This is just habits and how people fucking work in analytics. It's not like if you're a woman, you have to get you, or vice versa. But yeah, typically it skews in that way. But yeah, I mean, 12.7% female in our fucking audience right now. Yeah, and then our biggest bulge is 25 to 34, and really it's all just like 60% of our audience is between 25 and 45. And then if you really want to get big, like basically all of our audience is 25 to 54. It looks like we have some young guys that listen to our show, and women, I imagine, also. That's based to we hope that more young people are getting into politics still at the same rate that people were when Gavin and I were, graduating high school. And Gavin and I would have been the 1% that's that 13 to 17 years that's still fucking interested. Apparently 0%. But do you know what it also probably is I guarantee we get flagged as explicit. So you have to be fucking, yeah, I was like, we swear too much. That's why we have 0 fucking 13 to 17-year-olds. So anyway, yeah, it is kind of like a balancing act like that. But yeah, we love all of our female audience, and we wish we had a fucking larger one. And I would be open to feedback to see if there's anything that anybody says that we could do, other than the fact that I think just us being ourselves. I don't know. Maybe that's more off-putting. I don't know. I don't know. I get it.
I mean, obviously, we're two dudes having a conversation. Yeah. We're going to devolve into dude broisms a lot. That does happen. So that might put off some female listeners, but it is interesting. And like I said, seemingly most channels on YouTube have that issue where it's like way more men watching. I really think it's just because more men have YouTube accounts. Like I think it boils down to that. Like most of the people I know that are into YouTube, that watch a lot of YouTube, are dudes. I've just found that to anecdotally be true. So I imagine that's the way the analytics break down. But yeah, if you're a female listener, make sure to recommend us to all your fellow female political junkies so we can get those numbers up. But yeah, really appreciate the question. And thank you so much. No, what?
Oh, I was just going to say, shout out to you, Addy the Bug Catcher. I just saw another one pop up on our screen really quickly. Oh, did we? Oh. Any thoughts on the Caleb Maupin drama? Yeah, I mean, it's fucked up, and that there's a really great article about it that you can read from the actual sources. But yeah, Gavin's more familiar with it than.
Yeah, the article is fucking wild. I would definitely recommend you read it. It's a really well put together article that, painstakingly details the abuse of this piece of shit. So fuck Caleb Maupin. It's pretty obvious that he's guilty. He basically deplatformed himself. He deleted his Twitter and essentially admitted that he was in the wrong. So it's not really up for debate as to the credibility of the accusations. They are incredibly credible. Yeah, fuck Caleb Maupin. He's a monster. He's a piece of shit. I've never been a fan of his. So, it's not that I wasn't surprised. Obviously I was surprised. You never expect someone to be a fucking sexual terrorist, but it is disgusting. And I never would have imagined that level of depravity from someone like that, who, I always found him cringy, but I never necessarily thought he was capable of the kind of insanely disgusting stuff that's outlined in that article. Again, he was like asking his subordinates to be a dominatrix and like spank him and shit. And then when they refused, he would smear them behind the scenes and discommunicate them from his organization and, call them alcoholics and slander them as addicts and all this kind of stuff, basically ruining their relationships with other people in his organization, all because they didn't want to submit to his sexual desires. So I find that disgusting. And again, I recommend you guys read the article if you haven't already. The only reason we haven't commented on it is just because I don't really know what to add to the story other than fuck this guy. He's a fucking piece of shit. That's my commentary. So read the article.
Yep. Yeah, appreciate the super chat, Mike. Addy, damn, superpower fucking coming in all the time on this stream, Addy. Shout out to you. Addy's 30. But I've definitely learned a lot watching this channel. Shout out to us, Gavin. We've changed Addy's mind a few times. A few instances I had my view changed on some issues as well. So shout out to you, Addy. Appreciate you always being lively along in the chat. And yeah, we're glad that you've had your mind changed. Obviously, we're not always gonna come down on the same side of everything, as you just heard throughout this entire stream. Gavin and I come down on different sides of things, but really appreciate you tuning in, always being a lively and lovely part of the conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Addy. We really appreciate your super chats today and for being a part of our community. We love you. And yeah, as far as having your views changed, I'm glad that you found our commentary or opinions persuasive, Eddie. Obviously, no one listening to this stream, no one that ever listens to the Vanguard is going to agree with us on 100% of the issues. That's just not going to happen. As Zach said, we don't even agree with each other on 100% of the issues. So it's important to understand that, yeah, there's always going to be some level of disagreement. But all we ask is that you hear us out, and hopefully you can come to terms with our areas of disagreement wherever they might exist. And I promise that we respect your opinions as much as you guys respect ours, and that's why we like doing these Q&As, to get some of that pushback. Sometimes people kind of offer their opinion, and we love engaging with that. We like to engage with our community because we really respect the way you guys are thinking about this stuff too.
Yep, absolutely. So thank you, Addie. Shout out to you, Mariposa. Y'all seem both lovable. I think it's just a consequence of lefty women not having heard y'all yet. Well, thank you. That's super nice of you to say. And yeah, everybody can listen to whatever content that they like. We think we do a great show. We hope that we have the a wide, diverse audience, a blanket of inclusivity, if you will. And thank you for the kind words, Mariposa. Always great to see you in the chat. Have a good day as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mariposa. I really appreciate that. And really appreciate the fact that you're enjoying the show. Thank you also, Marvin Garvis, for the $2. What's your opinion on Tulsi? I mean, obviously there's some base Tulsi moments during the primary, like when she eviscerated Kamala Harris on the debate stage. Unfortunately, basically ever since she endorsed Joe Biden, it's been a downhill slide from there. And now she's just a fucking talking head on Fox News, their token ex-Democrat to trot out and agree with every single right-wing talking point. So it's pretty sad to see what's happened to Tulsi, especially given her very courageous endorsement of Bernie Sanders in 2016, one of the only elected representatives that actually endorsed Bernie Sanders over Hillary. So obviously, was a big fan of her back in the day, but it has been a downhill slide from there, to put it lightly. It's downright pathetic the way she just shills for the right wing for money now.
Yeah, actually, in hindsight, I think that it was all like plotted and just for careerism from jump. I think that she hated Hillary Clinton and the Hillary Clinton wing of the party, and she saw an opportunity to burst her fucking namesake. Not that it wasn't based in a vacuum, it was, but as far as her own motives and the way that we've seen her kind of pivot to always be in the limelight, and she went on Sean Hannity and just basically like buckled to all of his like massive conservative framing, and now she's hosting the Tucker Carlson show. After trying to, all of her fucking supporters were like, she doesn't support corporate money, fuck The Intercept, like fucking that's all fake journalism. But like Tucker Carlson's actually the last truth teller on fucking mainstream media. It's like, okay guys, you don't, okay, that's a very consistent criticism. Okay, glad you're making that. Like, so yeah, I don't have much. I have a very low criticism, or very low opinion of Tulsi. I think she's a grifter. I think she's a finger in the wind politician, and I think she's a turf too, so fuck her.
Yeah, and she is undeniably a grifter. Like, I don't even know how you could argue with that. Like, how does someone have that much of an ideological change in that short of a time? It's very simple. The money is on the right wing. Like, that is why people grift, guys. Like people always act like that's a smear to say, like, oh, don't just say that. Like, actually, sometimes it's true though. Like, there is a financial incentive to make right-wing content, and I don't know what a better word is to use for someone that makes that decision in order to increase their fucking wallet size, So that's what it is. Undeniably a grifter, as Tyler said. We do have a few more questions from the patrons before we get out of here. 2.5 hours though already. What a crazy stream. Thank you all for participating in this lively Q&A. But yeah, let's get through the rest of these questions. This one's you can answer, Zach. I'm not as into football, so I can't break down that. But yeah, go for it, Zach.
All right. So when it comes to quarterbacks in the history of the Chiefs, I thought about Googling our all-time list. I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to go from memory, guys. I think Mahomes is right up there with Len Dawson. Okay, Len Dawson's an OG when it comes to Chiefs football. He was a Super Bowl 1 and 2 era kind of football player, right? And when the NFL actually started, the Chiefs were like a fucking powerhouse, guys. We were going to the Super Bowl. We were, we won, I think the 3rd Super Bowl ever, right? That was when, the Chiefs were playing fucking ball, man. That was when HST was writing about fucking football back in the day, right? When you were fucking mean and gritty, and it wasn't like necessarily nearly the business that it was today, but Len Dawson is considered a god amongst men in Kansas City, or at least he was. I don't fucking know if he's still alive. Let me find that out really quick. Anyway, so that's the guy. Yeah, he's died. He died like 3 days ago. What the fuck? That's crazy. Oh fuck. R.I.P. Len Dawson. Holy shit. We didn't eulogize the man on the show, but he, honestly, before Patrick Mahomes came along, the only like truly beloved Kansas City quarterback. Now, people will say, What about Joe Montana? Here's the thing about Joe Montana. By the time we got Joe Montana, he was only like 30% still Joe Montana, right? This was in the late 90s when the Chiefs were really into recycling superstar quarterbacks. So he already had his entire career as a 49er. And then we brought him over to the Chiefs. Right, we we made a run at it in '97, lost. My dad still likes to talk about fucking Len Elliott and the missed fucking kicks that whole fucking game, right? Anyway, okay, so that's, I would put Mahomes one above Joe Montana, not because of Joe Montana's entire career, right, which we can't say that Mahomes can compete with yet, but his career as a Chief, right? Going to multiple Super Bowls, winning a Super Bowl. These things haven't happened to anybody besides Len Dawson. So I would put Mahomes right there. And then you've got Joe Montana, and it's like, okay, I guess maybe Alex Smith fits on that list because we've had a bunch of fucking horrible quarterbacks. And then after that, like, I don't know, like Trent Green, I couldn't say.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question, Jacob. As I've said before, I'm a more low-key Chiefs fan. Like, when they're doing well, I'm happy to root for them. It's exciting when they go to the Super Bowl, and obviously it's undeniable that Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. But I just don't know enough to offer any sort of ranking of my own. So I'll just defer to Zach on that one. But really appreciate Jacob. Always like some good sports questions. Always fun to talk about some non-political stuff too. So we appreciate you diversifying our pool of questions today. And we did get a few more super chats, a few more patron questions since we went live. So I quickly put those in format. Thank you so much, Blaine. Really appreciate the question. And thank you for the support on Patreon. What issue/problem do you feel could be a turning or tipping point that unites working class people into direct action that transforms our government? Whew. I would say maybe climate change. It might already be too late to, effectively transform anything. But I do think as climate change and the effects of it become more undeniable, I definitely see that being something that people could unite behind. I mean, maybe not all the people on the right wing, but like, for example, if you're living in Louisiana or something, Louisiana is a red state, but I think most people in Louisiana would acknowledge the realities of climate change because they're seeing it. They're right next to the coast. The hurricanes are increasing. It's getting even hotter. At some point, you have to acknowledge reality, right? And assuming enough people do, I think that could be something that we could unite behind. Again, unfortunately, it might be too late, but that's just the first thing that comes to mind.
I think that's probably the one thing that could do it. And even then, I mean, don't hold your breath, Blaine. I mean, it's going to get really bad before we fucking unite behind climate change. But yeah, I think that would be the one thing to do it when the sky is fucking pitch purple and red and fucking all the water's poison. I think that maybe we might band together about that. But thank you so much. Yeah, shout out to you, Blaine. Shout out to you, Springtime for Comrades. That's a lovely name. I remember when you shared a story that turned out to be false and you immediately went back on air to correct it. I don't remember what the story was about. I will always remember you retracting it. That's the sort of standard that keeps me watching. Plus, do you think maybe Nomiki was paid to run? I can't think of another reason. I'll actually remember. That stands out like a fucking... Gavin and I we brought that up with Kyle when we saw him because it actually hurt us that much. Like, I never want to come out here and say something that is not true. I'm pretty sure what you're talking about is when Fiorella Isabella accused Kyle Kalinske, and we ripped his ass for it, and I felt fucking horrible because like 10 seconds later I found out it wasn't true. So not only have I personally apologized to Kyle Kalinske about that twice because I felt fucking horrible about that, but yeah, we ran a retraction, we took our piece down, we ran it back up. Look, we're not trying to slander anybody here. Sometimes we talk from the cuff, and that taught us a valuable lesson, as Gavin and I also have pointed out, that it's not worth the fast click if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. We were really young as a channel. We didn't know what we were doing. We had no advisors. We were just here saying, oh God, here's a fucking story that'll give us 10,000 live viewers. Let's go fucking right now. And we fucked up. So yeah, shout out to you, Springtime. And I don't think Nomiki was paid to run. I wouldn't say that unless I see some really serious evidence. I think people's bubbles and narcissism goes a lot longer or farther than we think.
Yeah, and appreciate the fact that you appreciate our integrity, if that's how you see it. Obviously, we never want to put anything out there that's false, and if we ever do, we always try to correct it. So I appreciate the fact that you appreciate that about us. As far as Nomiki Konst goes, I don't necessarily think she was paid to run. Maybe if she had stayed in until the end, then I could be like, oh, maybe she was paid, because like, what the fuck else is the point of this? But the fact that she did drop out and endorse Kristen Gonzalez does lead me to believe that it was really just a misguided and very narcissistic attempt to actually win. She probably thought she actually could win. And again, running for office opens up a lot of opportunities for you, even if you don't win. I mean, look at, like, we were just talking about Tulsi Gabbard, right? Like, obviously she didn't win. She didn't even have a chance of winning. But now look at all the opportunities that have resulted in her, name recognition going through the roof. After people found out about her, then she was able to turn that into a gig at Fox News.
Or
So
Yang.
or Andrew Yang, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing, is that even if you have a 0% chance of winning, there's still a lot of financial incentives to run for office. So I'm guessing that was part of the calculus. Maybe she was actually delusional enough to think that she did win. And again, if she had stayed in until the bitter end, then I might be a little bit more sympathetic to the theory that she was like, a paid wrecker to try to split the vote and take it from Kristen. But again, with no evidence to suggest that necessarily, I just don't want to make accusations like that when there really is no foundation for it. Although I can't blame people for coming to that conclusion, especially before she actually dropped out. It was getting to the point where it was like, bro, why are you doing this? Seriously.
Yeah, although whoever if to get what 2% of the vote, I just think they would have paid somebody else, bro. They would have paid somebody the fuck else with a better chance. But anyway, yeah. Shout out to you, Springtime for Comrades. Yeah, I don't think that. Oh, and then the last one just says, "Hey dudes, hope y'all are doing well. Keep it up." And shout out to you, Simon Perlks. That's not much of a question, but we appreciate the kind words, and we will maintain that spirit as we hit the road this weekend. Gavin and I really excited to, put the phones down for a few days and actually just do some real thinking on the show and everything in our own lives, and really come back with some good footage and some good content for you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, Simon. Really appreciate the positivity, and thank you so much for the support on Patreon as well. Yeah, we hope you're doing well too, man. And I'm glad you're enjoying the show, enjoying the content. As I said, Zach and I are hitting the road tomorrow morning. We're headed to Colorado to collect some more footage for our second documentary, which will be airing in September. The first one will be airing, well, actually, the first one will probably be airing at the beginning of September. The second one will probably come out in like October. So, stay tuned for that. We're really excited about it. Again, we're hitting the road tomorrow to get more footage. And yeah, stay tuned, guys. Really appreciate that. Hope you're doing well also, Simon. Thank you to all the patrons. Really appreciate your guys' support on Patreon. If you're interested in joining on our Patreon, the link is in the description. It always is. We do like to shout out our patrons at the beginning and end of every live stream, and we are at the end of this Q&A, so I guess we'll segue into that. Huge shout out to you guys. Thank you so much. As I said, the link's in the description. And we would not be able to do this show without your guys' support. Even just a few bucks a month really, really helps. So please consider hitting that up. If you enjoy the content we create, it would be much appreciated. But obviously, we totally understand if you guys aren't able to do that. All we ask is that you hit that like button. Really good way to help the show too, completely free. And obviously subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell so that you don't miss our next live stream. But in general, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. It was a lively Q&A. It was a really good discussion. We love engaging with our community. So thank you guys all for, participating in the live chat, for hitting that like button, for, just generally being a part of this community. It means a lot to us. We enjoy these monthly check-ins with you guys, hear from you guys a little bit, maybe get some pushback. It's really appreciated. It's one of our favorite things to do. So again, had a great time. Thank you guys so much, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yeah, and shout out to you, Kemp Chalmers. He says, love to use the Chiefs on Madden when they had Larry Johnson and Priest Holmes. Larry Johnson was the bane of everybody in Kansas City's fucking existence. Everybody used to call him Paycheck Johnson because he was just there for a fucking paycheck. He did not. How many fucking times gut rush up the fucking middle? I mean, Jesus Christ, you're fucking triggering me. I loved Priest Holmes, though. Priest Holmes was base and actually a good running back. So anyway, shout out to you, Kemp Chalmers.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Might be gone for the next 3 days or so because we're going to be out of town. So if something really crazy happens, we'll go live from Colorado. But if not, we'll probably, be back next week sometime. But anyway, thanks guys so much. Really appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend. Peace, comrades.